सबड्यूट
सो
कर।
अनफॉर्चुनेट। ईश्वर उनकी पुण्यात्मा को सदगति दे।
जी धन्यवाद।
तो मिनी जी, आपका क्या विचार है? चाइना, वुड यू लाइक टू स्टे इन चाइना?
मैं पिंग कर रही थी चाइना में
जी जी।
अंडर नो सर्कमस्टेंसेस, लेकिन फिर भी अम, जो भारत की लोकतंत्र को का हालत देख रही हूँ, कभी कभी मुझे लगता है कि अम, एक आम आदमी जिसे अपनी आराम से जिंदगी जीनी है, उसे क्या फर्क पड़ता है कि कौन सी गवर्नमेंट है कौन सी नहीं है।
नहीं, गवर्नमेंट की बात नहीं हो रही मैम। चाइना और इंडिया में मॉडल गवर्नेंस का डिफरेंट है। तो
या
चाइना में तो मतलब आप चूज ही नहीं कर सकते कौन
चूज
सी
ही नहीं कर
गवर्नमेंट
सकते
होनी।
कोई गवर्नमेंट
हाँ
होगी या नहीं, वही वही बात है ना। मतलब वहाँ पे तो वन पार्टी गवर्नमेंट है,
हाँ, और
वहाँ
वो
पे
उसको
कोई
हटा भी नहीं
दूसरा
सकते।
ओपोजिशन भी नहीं है, लीडर उनके कितने भी साल रहे,
नीरज जी
और लेकिन
नमस्कार।
उनकी डिसीजन मेकिंग में उनको बहुत हेल्प होती है, लेकिन दे
नमस्कार
आर वेरी इनह्यूमन, ये तो मानना पड़ेगा। यू डोंट हैव फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच, एक्सप्रेशन। मैं आपको बताती हूँ कि कम्युनिज्म की बात चल रही है ना, क्योंकि वहाँ पे कम्युनिज्म है। तो क्यूबा में माय डॉटर वेंट देयर, और वहाँ पे आउट ऑफ क्यूरियोसिटी शी आस्क क्वेश्चंस कि क्यूबा में आप लोग व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट यहाँ की पॉलिटिक्स। लोग मुंह नहीं खोलते, जवाब तक नहीं देते, ये भी नहीं करते कि सिर भी नहीं हिलाते। दैट वाज हर एक्सपीरियंस, एंड आई नो चाइना इज नॉट डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दैट either.
Remember, these are very dangerous questions
Yes.
to ask in a communist regime. You should advise your daughter not to ask these questions, especially when she is physically present there.
Right. She went there to study their medical system, and you know, but when she came back, she said, "Mom, everything." वहाँ पे सबके पास घर है, किसी के पास ऐसा नहीं कि रोटी नहीं है, कपड़ा भी है, यहाँ तक कि जब किसी के पास जॉब नहीं है तो उनको भूखा नहीं है कोई भी, लेकिन अमीर कोई भी नहीं है। एक डॉक्टर और एक क्लर्क की इनकम में बस इतना सा अंतर है कि डॉक्टर का घर एक कमरा ज़्यादा होगा और क्लर्क का घर जो है उसमें एक कमरा कम होगा। इससे ज़्यादा अंतर नहीं है। अम, यहाँ की तरह वहाँ पे इतनी मॉल्स वगैरह ये सब चीज़ें नहीं है। मैं क्यूबा की बात कर रही हूँ, चाइना इज़ डिफरेंट फ्रॉम दैट। लेकिन जब 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 फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच है, फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन है, दैट्स वेरी डेंजरस, बहुत ही
अच्छा,
अ,
क्यूबा में मैम,
हाँ जी।
मिनी मैम, क्यूबा में जो कम्युनिज्म है वो एक्चुअली वो टॉर्चरस नहीं है चाइना की तरह, सो फार। आई मीन
यस।
यू नो द वाइल्ड। हाँ, चाइना में तो जो मतलब तियानमेन स्क्वायर के बारे में तो लोगों को पता ही होगा, लेकिन वहां पे एवरीडे तियानमेन स्क्वायर होता है। इंस्टेड ऑफ रोलिंग पीपल डाउन बाय टैंक्स,
आई
जो
नो।
वहाँ की लेबर फोर्स है वो 16 घंटे उससे काम कराया जाता है।
बिल्कुल।
बगल में ही उनका क्वार्टर बना हुआ है, 8 घंटे सो के आओ और फिर काम पे लग जाओ। और ये होता है मतलब 7 days a week। और उनको फिर फैमिली वहां नहीं रहती है वर्कर्स की, फैमिली रहती है रूरल एरियाज में। अच्छा, फैमिली को अगर अर्बन एरियाज में आना है तो उनको वीजा बनवाना पड़ता है। आर यू अवेयर ऑफ दैट फैक्ट?
नो, आई
दैट
वाज
इफ
नॉट
somebody is
आई वाज
हाँ,
नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दैट।
if somebody is coming from a rural area to an urban area, he would have to get a visa made to enter an urban territory. And जो वर्कर्स हैं उनको वो साल में एक बार दो बार छुट्टी दे दी जाती है। तो बिल्कुल बंधुआ मजदूर जो होते हैं ना मिनी मैम, जिसको हम
यस
लोगों ने
यस।
खत्म करा बड़े प्रयास के साथ, बॉन्डेड लेबर्स या स्लेव्स,
एब्सोल्युटली।
तो वो वाली स्थिति है। आई मीन आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि देयर लेबर्स वुड बी अर्निंग मे बी 30% मोर वेजेस देन इंडियन लेबर्स, but this is what the condition of that country and its workers and its people are.
मैंने
So I
उनकी एक डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज देखी है आंदोलन जी, जो वर्कर्स की कंडीशंस मैंने देखी है। वो क्या करते हैं, गांव से आते हैं ये लोग, अपने बच्चों को अपने ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स के पास छोड़ गए। और बच्चों को साल
बच्चों
में
नहीं मैम,
एक बार देखना।
बच्चों नहीं, बच्चे।
बच्चे
हाँ,
बच्चे अपने
बच्चा।
बच्चे को बिल्कुल अपने बच्चे को साल में एक बार उनको देखना होता है। और जब कोई फेस्टिवल होता है, जैसे इनका न्यू ईयर होता
हाँ,
है
चाइनीज
चाइनीज का,
न्यू
ये
ईयर,
बहुत
हाँ।
बड़ा। राइट। और बाकी धार्मिक तो इनके होते नहीं है, चाइनीज न्यू ईयर होता है। उस वक्त दे वांट टू गो होम, और रहते भी इस ऐसे हैं कि वो जैसे होते हैं ना ट्रेन में, क्या कहते हैं, बर्थ्स होते हैं, एक के ऊपर हस्बैंड वाइफ, एक छोटा सा कमरा, उसमें एक साइड पे कॉमन बाथरूम फॉर मैनी मैनी पीपल, और फिर किचन, बिल्कुल नाम की किचन, एक हल्का सा स्टोव रखा हुआ या कुछ। तो they were like, the documentary was about one couple, a couple of couples who have come to the city to earn their living. तो उन्होंने ट्रेन पे जाना था। अब ट्रेन पे इतने लोगों की रिजर्वेशंस तो हो नहीं सकती, एक ही टाइम पे सारी चाइना को अपने अपने घर जाना है, फैक्ट्रीज को भी जाना है। तो कितने कितने दिन पहले वो मतलब उनको मतलब कितने ही लोग जो हैं वो एक एक डिब्बे में ऐसे घुसे होते हैं कि सांस लेने की उनको नहीं, और लेकिन फिर भी वो टाइम पे पहुंच जाएं, ये बहुत बड़ी बात होती है। सो इट्स अ वेरी पुअर कंडीशन। कहने को है कि इनके पास दे मिसयूज देयर पब्लिक। आप कहते हो कि इंडिया से उससे ज़्यादा मिलता होगा, पर आई डोंट थिंक दैट दे मेक रियली गुड मनी एट ऑल। और बहुत सेक्रीफाइस है उनका
So the
अपनी।
problem, Miniji, is also that a worker cannot just leave a factory and join some other factory for higher wages. ऐसी भी प्रॉब्लम है।
यस एग्जैक्टली, बिल्कुल।
तो वो जहाँ पे असाइन कर दिया गया है उसको उतनी तनख्वाह मिलेगी, एंड दैट सैलरी ही विल गेट फ्रॉम दैट वर्क, एंड इट इज एन एब्सोल्यूट pathetic working condition. I mean, whatever we see of Chinese cities, those are 10, 12, 14 cities which have been built with glass and concrete, and lot of lighting is shown over here. But in a country, imagine if you can't even move within the country without the need of visas to enter several places, what would be the state of that country? And a lot of people on clubhouse forums or discussions in general, we talk about the economy of China, which has grown to fairly high percentage, all good in last 20, 30 years, but this has come with a cost, and a huge cost at that. So Ayush ji.
Yes. Hello everyone. Thank you so much, Andolan ji. And just a small thought, Andolan ji. दो बहुत सारे इंटेलेक्चुअल्स बैठे हुए हैं तो मेरी थॉट बहुत लिमिटेड रहेगी, बट जो मेरी थॉट है वो मैं तो प्रेजेंट करना चाहूँगा, आंदोलन जी। Uh, to be very frank, Andolanji, when we look into Chinese, you are absolutely right that one of the first thing that attract us towards the Chinese is absolutely the economy of the Chinese. But to be very frank, when you look into, and I would be speaking in the terms of geopolitics, that when you look into the some of the geopolitical experts who are not only situated upon the oriental part of the world, but also onto the occidental part of the world, they are into the opinion that don't be surprised that from now onwards, specifically with all the supply chain disruptions and thus amid the COVID-19 time, that you would see the Chinese economy rising above almost 6.5 to 7%. And that is something which is very interesting. And that is which we have seen in Russia and which we are witnessing in China. Now, what does this indicate? It indicates that somehow or the other, the capacity of Chinese is now actually plateauing, or I would say the economy of Chinese is now actually stabilizing. You cannot expect the Chinese economy to rise at present, and somehow or the other, I feel that it has now become stabilized. It would be there between 6% to 6.5%, and it would need a miracle if Chinese economy or the Chinese GDP moves ahead to almost 7%. That is something which is about the economical forefront of the Chinese. But yes, when you look into does India need to emulate something from China, I believe that though China has done immense amount of work in terms of uplifting their poverty, but one thing that many people are not really aware of is, to be very frank, when you look into the ground zero of China, we see that the Chinese economy has absolutely been centralized, and the so-called corruption, the so-called other things, the dark secrets of society do not actually prevail in China. Let me give you a clear-cut example for that. So recently, China host the Winter Olympics, and in the Winter Olympics, absolutely 30 to 40% of the electricity that was being used in the Winter Olympics was being used by the renewable form of the energies. And near the village city where the games was organizing, they ultimately set up the huge solar panels. Now the people whose land has been taken for the solar panel installment, the people say that though the Xi Jinping government have said that they would be offering them some money in order to take their land for the solar panel installment, but the reality is that the people whose land has been taken, it's been almost 5 to 6 months, but the people haven't got any money. So to be very frank, Andolanji, I believe that the world has actually over highlighted the Chinese just by looking with a very myopic angle of economy. And let me
Yeah,
tell you
and
that
IOG, even there, I believe the most of the data points which comes, it comes by the as published by China. Is it something which is validated, verified by the IMF, etc., and all of those organizations? I do not know. I mean, if somebody can update me on that how far are those numbers accurate, correct, which have been projected by the CCP? Because there is no media within China which can, validate this. There is no voice of people which is visible outside China, which can validate or deny these facts. So, a lot of times I also have the, suspicion on the numbers being presented.
even, yeah, just one small thing, Andalanji, is the great example. You look into the scientific development of the Chinese, and what was the testament of that? The testament of was the COVID-19. So even when you look into their vaccine specifically, Andalanji, I would say with my all heart open that our vaccine of Covaxin ranks far, far ahead compared to the Sinopharm and Sinovac. And the result was such that Sinopharm and Sinovac, this were the
It
two
so
prominent
appears we are better than Pfizer also now.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. You're spot on this. So, yeah. So, even countries, ASEAN countries have imported vaccines from China specifically, the likes of Indonesia, but the vaccine has not been able to curb this. So, my point of all this that we have over highlighted the Chinese, but again, no doubt they have uplifted. But you also need to look into the other standards of human rights, other standards of what's been happening in Xinjiang, where people are being taken into the so-called, centers where they are deprived of the basic facilities. So these things need to be checked out, and I believe whenever you are judging a country, there must be multiple parameter, not a single myopic parameter, because that single myopic parameter is something which is very unilateral in my personal
Yeah.
terms.
And Ayushi, this is where I held up this room today because economic growth is not economic growth and prosperity for all the citizens of the countries definitely should be the objective of every government. But you cannot conduct series of genocides and then achieve an economic growth. And that's where my disconnect is, and that is why we also need perspective that people should have those. A lot of people who come from West today, they simply just go into China grew by 7% every year for 30 years, so it's a great country, right? But in the process, they would never like to go through the same process what they are I think they are also most of the people are not aware in the West that what process China took its citizens to showcase this kind of numbers. If they are aware of that, if this is the process of this unprecedented growth of the last 20 30 years, it has come on the blood and corpuses of millions and millions of people. Probably people would, but rather than highlighting them as the hero of economic growth, they will call them the devil of economic growth. With that, let us move forward. We have another, few more people on the panel. We have Ali ji, we have Neeraj ji, we have Minakshi ji, and AG. Any of you would like to speak? Can start the discussion. The discussion which we are having is China growth, which is based on corpuses worth emulating.
Yeah, I just want to add on a few points. First thing is we don't need to emulate China. China is China is standing on the blood and the corpses of many laborers. There are no labor laws in that country, and if you look at the human rights violations in that country, I mean, there are not they are not reported properly, but a lot of them came out. One of the prominent ones was the Chinese medical doctor who worked at Wuhan Central Hospital and issued emergency warnings to other hospitals and doctors about the new disease. His name was Li Wenliang, and he was arrested and accused of making false comments and for severely disturbing the social order. The second one was Fang Bin, a Chinese businessman, citizen journalist, and whistleblower who broadcast images of Wuhan during the coronavirus crisis. He has been missing since 9 February 2020. Chen Qiushi, a Chinese lawyer, activist, and citizen journalist who covered the 2019-20 Hong Kong protests and the COVID-19 pandemic. He has been missing since 6 February 2020. Similarly, you have Li Zihao, a Chinese citizen journalist. Then you have Chen Mi and L. Mogi V. He was also an activist. And there are many more. There are like more than 200.
Aladdin chain restaurant.
Alibaba.
Alibaba, sorry.
Alibaba, yeah. So he was also missing. There are many journalists, activists. There is no freedom of speech in this country. The Tibetan Buddhists, the Christians, and many other religious groups are getting persecuted in China. So China is in a deep shit, and it's not a country which we should be emulating. It's not a model which the world has to follow. It's an autocratic, regime of few people who are suppressing the rights of the common people. Today, the students of China who come out of China, they don't want to go back to China. Yeah, these are some of the points which I want to add to start with. Thank you.
अली जी बोलना चाहते
मैं
हैं
बस
कुछ?
शेयर करूंगा अली बाबा के जो पैसे हैं वो मुझे आप दे दीजिएगा, बाकी कोई बात नहीं, मैं सुन लेता हूँ।
जी
वो 40 चोर ले गए।
उस पे सर वो 40-50 कर लेंगे अली
बस
जी हम
ठीक
लोग।
हो गया।
अरे 40 चोर कुछ बचा के रखेंगे तो तुम लोग
नहीं, वो
पहले तो चोर ले जाएंगे।
मिनी साहिबा का भी 10% रखना पड़ेगा।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
नहीं, एक बात मैं कहना चाहूंगा आंदोलन जी, एक वाजपेयी जी ने एक बात कही थी, ये वाजपेयी जी उस समय की बात है, शायद वो जब विदेश मंत्री थे और बाद में भी बहुत कम लोगों को पता है वाजपेयी जी की जितनी सूझ विदेश नीति में थी, इतनी भारत के उस जनरेशन के किसी नेता में इतनी नहीं रही होगी। उन्होंने एक बात कही थी कि जैसे हम किसी दुकानदार के पास जाते हैं और कहते हैं कि भैया ये माल इतने में दे दो, वो कहेगा नहीं इतने नहीं, ये तो उसका ज्यादा कीमत लूंगा मैं। तो फिर थोड़ी आप नेगोशिएट करते हैं, थोड़ा फिर एक मिडल पॉइंट पे आके थोड़ा उसकी मान लेते हैं, थोड़ी आप अपनी मनवा लेते हैं और डील हो जाती है। चाइना का ऐसा है कि वो कभी भी नेगोशिएट नहीं करेगा। ये बात केवल चाइना स्टेट के बारे में नहीं, आप चाइनीज मर्चेंट्स को भी देख लीजिए। हम इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे काम करते हैं। एक रसल पीटर नाम के बड़े सिद्ध कॉमेडियन है, उनका ये उसके ऊपर उन्होंने एक पूरा स्किट बनाई हुई है कि इंडियन पीपल एंड चाइनीज पीपल कैन नॉट वर्क टुगेदर बिकॉज चाइनीज कैन नेवर बार्गेन एंड नेगोशिएट एंड इंडियंस कैन नॉट बाय विदाउट बार्गेनिंग। तो ये बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है। ये चाइना का जो स्टबननेस है, ये एक माफ करिएगा किसी को बुरा ना लगे, लेकिन ये एक अब्राहमिक रिलीजन से भी तगड़ा स्टबननेस है, क्योंकि अब्राहमिक रिलीजियस कंसिडरेशन में आप कोई भी थियोक्रेटिक स्टेट होगा, वो जितना तो जानता है कि यार हम जो जिस आइडियोलॉजी को लेके कर रहे हैं उसका कोई सॉलिड रियलाइज प्रूफ नहीं है। लेकिन चाइना के पास कम्युनिज्म का सॉलिड रियलाइज प्रूफ है। चाइना ने ये समझ लिया है कि उसकी आइडियोलॉजी तभी सक्सेसफुल होगी जब वो कोई नॉन नेगोशिएबल स्पेस पे ऑपरेट करेगा, और उसके लिए वो किसी भी कीमत को चुकाने के लिए तैयार है। वो अपने इंसानों का ऑर्गन हार्वेस्टिंग भी करवा सकता है, वो अपने इंसानों को कल भी करवा सकता है, मरवा भी सकता है। माओ से तुमने तो ये तक करवाया था कि लोगों से अपने अपने बर्तन पिघलवा दिए थे, लोगों के पास खाने पकाने के लिए बर्तन नहीं बचे थे, और जब उनको भूख से मरे जा रहे थे तब माओ से ने ये कहा था कि भूख क्या करते हो, जो भी इस दुनिया में विचरित करता है, जो भी मूव कर रहा है, जो भी प्राणी कीड़ा मकोड़ा, सब खाने लायक। तो ये जो मानसिकता है, इस मानसिकता से विकास तो शायद हो जाएगा कुछ लोगों के लिए, पर ये एक बहुत इंसान का मतलब ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट में इवोल्यूशन नहीं दे रहा है। कोई आपको उसकी उत्क्रांति के साथ सामंजस्य नहीं बिठा पा रहा है। तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है चाइना के साथ।
चाइना के लोग चाइना में बार्गेन करना जानते हूँ या ना जानते हूँ, जब वो दूसरी कंट्रीज में सेटल हो जाते हैं ना, फिर उनको देखो किस तरह से वो बार्गेन करते हैं। दे आर दे एडजस्ट देमसेल्फ इन अकॉर्डिंग टू द कंट्री। उसका फ़ायदा कैसे उठाना है, दे नो। आई हैव सीन दैम इन USA, especially when I worked in a credit card industry, and I noticed these people were, you know, एक penny तक compromise नहीं कर सकते थे, एक penny भी। So these people are very aggressive wherever they go. What I have seen these people is that ये Chinese अपनी बाहर जाके पूरी फ्रीडम एंजॉय करते हैं, बट दे आर वेरी लॉयल टू देयर कंट्री। बाहर इनसे कुछ भी करवा लो चाइना के लिए। आई थिंक ब्रेन वॉशिंग,
इसमें हाँ,
इट्स ए ब्रेन वॉश।
नहीं,
दे
ये
आर
मैंने पॉइंट कहा ना कि नॉन नेगोशिएटिंग स्टैंड, ये जो है दैट इज द स्टेट्स पॉलिसी
ओके, यस,
एंड स्टेट
एग्जैक्टली,
पॉलिसी परमिट्स
यस।
इट।
They don't have to, because they are only one party. They are the one decide everything for the country. So they don't have,
एंड
they are not in the habit of doing any
डूइंग
negotiation.
अच्छा मिनी जी, क्या यही एक कारण है कि जहां जहां पे वेर एवर चाइना हैज एंटर्ड इनटू बिजनेस रिलेशनशिप, because they are one party system, almost they are dictatorial government, right? A government who can decide how many kids you should have, and who decide whether or not a sparrow should live in China, etc., and millions of such mistakes that they have done without any repercussion from the public. When they go and engage with societies, let's say like Sri Lanka, Pakistan to a certain extent is also a society where people have a vocal voice, and they work in a multi-party system. Let's say country like China, Sri Lanka, or lot of African countries. That is why the economic fallout of these countries are happening, who are trying to emulate China, or take China as an advisor on their board, but they are not able to execute the economic policies of China, because they cannot make their people to suffer the same kind of atrocities what China is ready to on their own people. So, whosoever has come in business or economic alliance with China, it has, either it has already doomed, or the indicators are that it is about to be doomed.
They are desperate countries, आंदोलन जी। उनके पास कुछ भी नहीं है। So they know in their subconscious mind, perhaps because,
हाँ, जैसे कि
when I say
मतलब
subconscious,
मिनी जी, मान लिया
हाँ,
पाकिस्तान ने इकोनॉमिक मॉडल चालू करा चाइना के साथ, और वो अगर पाकिस्तानी लोगों को एक कमरे में 3 लोगों को रुका के, gives 1 room to 3 people and ask them to work for 18 hours or 16 hours every day, producing or constructing something. The Pakistani government knows that people will revolt against this kind of dictatorial regime. Same thing will happen in Sri Lanka. So the China's kind of economic model is actually not immutable also. One is whether or not somebody should emulate. The second is it emulatable?
yes. ये मैं कहना नहीं चाहती, वो शब्द नहीं बोलना चाहती ऐसा, कि जैसे वो हमारे यहाँ पे कहते हैं ना कि बनिया मेंटालिटी, वो जो ब्याज लेने की, तो उस पे ये सारा काम करते हैं, उससे उसको बंदी बना लेते हैं। वैसे हमारे जो बनिया समाज है वो बहुत ही धार्मिक है और बहुत ही उसको गलत प्रोजेक्ट किया गया है।
हाँ, नहीं,
हम लोगों
we understand.
we
You are
understand।
talking more on the yes.
हाँ, मैं उस संदर्भ में नहीं कह रही, मैं वैसे कह रही हूँ कि वो जो ब्याज लेने की प्रवृत्ति और फिर उससे जकड़ने की प्रवृत्ति जो है, जैसे पुरानी पिक्चर्स में दिखाया जाता था कि उसने फिर उसकी जमीन हड़प ली। सो दे डू इट, they exactly, that's what they did it in Nepal, they did it in Sri Lanka, and in Pakistan। पता नहीं पाकिस्तान कब कोलैप्स हो जाएगा, इसी वजह से वहाँ पे। तो चाइना का, श्रीलंका का हाल तो देख लो, ऑलरेडी उनके लीडर्स ने इतना पैसा वहाँ से लिया कि अब उनको वापस देना भी मुश्किल हो गया। ब्याज जितना भी उनकी वो अपनी इनकम होती थी उतना तो उसका इंटरेस्ट होता था देने के लिए, और ये सब चाइना के दिया हुआ कर्ज था। सो चाइना ऑलरेडी नोज कि क्या हो सकता है वो इतना। सो लीडरशिप किसी भी कंट्री का जब वीक होगा ना तो वो चाइना के झांसे में फंसेंगे ही फंसेंगे। सो लकीली इंडिया नहीं ऐसा करता, सो वी आर वेरी लकी दैट वे। और हम लोगों ने आसपास देख भी लिया। वी विल नेवर इमुलेट दैट मॉडल एनी।
Actually, we almost emulated that 40 to 50%. We'll talk about that, but let us move forward. We have more speakers on the forum: Atharvi ji, Piyush ji, Dorth ji, BG ji. So Atharvi ji, any views on
Yeah,
yeah?
you were saying something, Andolan ji.
जी, हम लोग आज ये डिस्कस कर रहे थे, लॉट ऑफ पीपल और स्पेसिफिकली द चाइनीज प्रोपोगेंडा मशीनरी, द सीपीसी प्रोपोगेंडा मशीनरी, लेट मी नॉट कॉल इट द चाइनीज प्रोपोगेंडा मशीनरी. The CPC propaganda machinery has somehow tried to showcase the word that China is the economic powerhouse, but that economic growth has come at a huge cost. And we were discussing whether that model should be emulated by anybody else across the globe, causing that kind of hardship to their citizens and मतलब blatantly slave बना के रखा हुआ है पूरी जनता को. So that was the point we were discussing. Your views on the economic model of China.
मैं उसके पहले ना एक और चीज ऐड करूंगी. प्रोबेबली पीपल आर अवेयर 1985 से 2015 तक चाइना मे बी स्टिल नाउ and they used to do organ harvesting of the rarest tribes of जो ethnic minority होती है चाइना की. I'm not talking about Uyghur at all, like the native Chinese people, I'm talking about them. उनका organ harvesting की जाती थी while the subject is still alive, और this was a point of concern and they made a lot of money out of it. और ये टेस्टिंग से साबित हुआ था. ये टेस्टिंग में काफी बड़े लोग इन्वॉल्व थे, जैसे कि इजरायली के मेडिकल रिसर्च के हेड हैं, वो इन्वॉल्व थे इसमें टू कंफर्म दैट द ऑर्गन हार्वेस्टेशन, क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ा स्कैम है एक तरह से जो वर्ल्ड लेवल पे चलता है. कि अगर आपको पता हो तो वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में भी अगर आपको ऑर्गन डोनेशन का चाहिए तो आपको बहुत पहले से लाइन लगानी पड़ती है, और उसमें फिर आपका नंबर आता है. उसमें भी स्कैम किया जाता है कि सोर्सेस लगाए जाते हैं कि मेरा नंबर पहले आ जाए. तो वो बहुत काफ़ी कॉस्टली होता है प्रोसीजर. ऑर्गन मिलना कई बार बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है. तो उसमें भी तस्करी, चाइना वाज़ इन्वॉल्व्ड इनटू दैट एंड आई वाज़ स्टिल सर्चिंग के कितना पैसा बनाया है उसमें. इसका डेटा वो देते नहीं है जल्दी, बस कंसर्न्स बताते हैं. देयर आर एटलीस्ट 71 मेडिकल रिपोर्ट जिसमें ये साबित है कि जितनी भी ऑर्गन हार्वेस्टिंग हुई थी वो सब लिविंग सब्जेक्ट से हुई थी, नॉट कि ब्रेन डेड पीपल से हुई थी. दूसरा, जब हम इकोनॉमिक मॉडल की बात करते हैं, बिकॉज चाइना इज वेरी सैचुरेटेड, तो व्हाट दे डिड इंस्टेड ऑफ कॉलोनाइजेशन दे वेंट टू इकोनॉमिक कॉलोनाइजेशन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. तो इकोनॉमिक कॉलोनाइजेशन में अभी जो सबसे पुअर कॉन्टिनेंट या डेवलपिंग कॉन्टिनेंट में आ जाएगा तो अफ्रीका है. 2009 में उन्होंने $20 बिलियन का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मतलब और लोन भी दिया था कह सकते हैं, और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर भी तैयार किया. दे कैन बी अपलॉडेड व्हेन इट कंपेयर टू यूएस, क्योंकि उन्होंने जो भी यहाँ तक कि कई नाइजीरिया वगैरह में जो मेट्रोज आई हैं वो चाइना के एफर्ट से आई हुई हैं. बट उसका डाउन साइड ये है कि वो जिस तरह से वो पाकिस्तान में अपने इंजीनियर्स ले जा रहे थे, अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज में वो अपने कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स, इंजीनियर्स और जो मजदूर होते हैं लेबर, वो भी लेकर गए थे. एंड ये जो लेबर थे ये दिस लेबर्स वर एक्चुअली द प्रिजनर्स इन चाइना. तो इसे काला पानी की सजा होती है. तो इन लोगों ने व्हाट दे डिड, दे एक्चुअली ब्रॉट दिस बिजनेस एंड ट्रांसफर देम टू अफ्रीका टू एक्चुअली वर्क. तो नाउ ओवर टाइम व्हाट हैपेंड कि इन साउथ अफ्रीका का जो बिजनेस है, अगर आप उसमें बहुत डीपली जाएं तो वहाँ पे एक 1993 में उन्होंने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन तक गठित की थी टू एक्चुअली स्वीप आउट द चाइनीज ऑर्गेनाइज्ड क्राइम, कि बिजनेस में चाइनीज क्राइम कितना हो जाए. और 2009, 2017 और 2022 की रिपोर्ट है, उसके हिसाब से देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ चाइनीज गैंगस्टर which actually are involved in the crime in Africa. क्योंकि ये जो prisoners गए थे बाद में जब इनको छोड़ा गया तो ये इन्होंने crime करना start कर दिया अफ्रीका में. इनफैक्ट मेरे कई अफ्रीकन फ्रेंड्स हैं, they are very happy that China is doing better than US when it comes to infrastructure, but they are very they feel that they are कि उनके साथ भी धोखा ही हुआ एक तरह से, because the people who came to work there, they were actually mostly robbers, murderers, killers. उनको भी इन्होंने employ किया है as a labor to work on different projects, so which was very dangerous for the local people. In fact ये क्या करते थे कि they used to kidnap big businessman and sometime they would burn the people alive अगर उनको ransom time पे नहीं मिला. तो ये कंसर्न अफ्रीकन सोसाइटी में अभी है, पहले भी था, 1990 से भी था, साउथ अफ्रीकन में था, बट अभी साउथ अफ्रीकन में यू नो देयर आर वाइट पीपल एज वेल, बट और जो अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज है उसमें ये नया कंसर्न है कि दिस इज that the criminals are over here and somehow because there is a racial problem भी आ जाती है वहाँ पे, तो dominance वाला stuff भी आ जाता है यहाँ पे. और दूसरा अभी जो आपने अगर वो ये लोग और भी crime में involved हैं, you know, because you know I have friends who have gone to China on student exchange program, right? So to or sometime they have gone to China to teach English over there. So what they would tell that उनके अपने experience के हिसाब से the technology is very very advanced over there, but it's like sometimes they are very so saturated. तो कई बार वो गड्ढा खोद दिया तो बार बार उसी को खोदते रहते हैं, रिपेयर करते रहते हैं ताकि कुछ तो पैसा मिलता रहे, and that has made them to go economically outward because जो innovation कहीं ना कहीं से everybody is same, so there is no you know everybody is same, तो वहाँ पे जो हर जो innovation है काफी materialistic हो गया है, इससे they have waste product problem as well right now. तो उसका भी अलग से ही आएगा, वहाँ पे religious issues भी हैं. अभी ये कोरोना टाइम पे उन्होंने काफी जो pastor वगैरह थे, when everybody was silent, pastors actually came out on road to preach Christianity. तो उनके साथ भी उन्होंने पकड़ धरपकड़ हुई थी इनकी कि इनको अंदर बंद करो and all that. अभी हॉस्टन की एक रिपोर्ट आई थी, हॉस्टन, मैं नाम भूल गई पेपर का कि उसको क्या बोलते हैं. हाँ, उसमें ये था हॉस्टन क्रॉनिकल्स में कि यूटीएमबी जो कि यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ टेक्सास है, उन वहाँ की जो मेडिकल रिसर्च लैब है और गैल्स्टन नेशनल लेबोरेटरी के डॉक्टर जेम्स ने 9 पेज का मेमोरेंडम साइन किया था. ये भी मुझे किसी ने भेजा ही था, तो ताकि टू स्टडी डेट बिकॉज टू अंडरस्टैंड कि हाउ दिस कैन कम इनटू एग्जिस्टेंस. वो भी इनका जो 9 पेज का मेमोरेंडम है इन्होंने वुहान लेबोरेटरी के साथ साइन किया था. और इस 9 पेज के मेमोरेंडम में ये था कि वुहान लेबोरेटरी, आई एम ओनली टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्पेसिफिक पार्ट ऑफ द लेबोरेटरी लाइक इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी विच एक्चुअली researches on the most dangerous pathogens of the world, जैसे कि कोरोना वायरस का पैथोजन तो था, तो उसमें उन्होंने 9 पेज का मेमोरेंडम साइन किया था that they can ask any time to destroy the secret research whenever. ये उनके कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में है, तो अभी किसी ने फाइल केस नहीं किया यूएस में, but probably people in future will file case that how these laboratories, because I'm from science background, so I mostly like to see the effect of scientific theories on economic society. तो मैं उस पॉइंट ऑफ से बोल रही हूँ कि अगर ये क्योंकि आई एम नॉट श्योर इफ अदर पीपल आर एबल टू एक्सट्रापोलेट, बट दिस इज एक्सट्रीमली बिग न्यूज क्योंकि इस तरह से आप मेमोरेंडम साइन नहीं कर सकते. ये किसी ने राइट टू, जैसे यहाँ पे आरटीआई फाइल की जाती है, तो वहां पे भी यूएस में भी राइट टू नो एक्ट फाइल किया गया था कि हुआ क्या इनके बीच. सो देयर इज 9 पेज मेमोरेंडम जो कि इन 2 लेबोरेटरीज के बीच में साइन किया है, जिसके अकॉर्डिंग टू विच वुहान लैब कैन एक्चुअली आस्क यूटीएमबी यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ टेक्सास कि जब भी वो चाहे वो सारे रिकॉर्ड्स डिलीट कर सकती है. तो इसी वजह से जो आप ये जो फाइजर वैक्सीन देख रहे हैं अभी, जो अब इसमें इनका कितना रोल है टू एक्चुअली कंट्रोल द इकोनॉमी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, वी डू नॉट नो. मे बी देयर नीड टू बी मोर रिसर्च, बट आप जानते हैं कि चाइना में पीपल यू आर नॉट अलाउड टू रिपोर्ट एनीथिंग, राइट? सो वी
अतनु जी,
नेवर नो व्हाट विल हैपन, बट
30
इट हैज
सेकंड्स में
आल्सो
कंक्लूड
इम्पैक्टेड द
कर लीजिए,
इकोनॉमी.
फिर मैं आपके पास आ जाऊंगा. इफ देयर आर मोर देन वन
हाँ,
पॉइंट्स
मैं
देन आई विल कम
आई
टू यू
थिंक आई हैव
अगेन. हाँ,
कंक्लूडेड, सो यू कैन गो अहेड.
but very valid point raised, and this is the problem which, irrespective of what is the per capita income, but ये जो साइंटिफिक रिसर्च चाइना में चलती है और जो इलॉजिकल रिसर्चेस चलती है, somewhere I have a very strong worry that it should not become, an end of world event at any given point of time. Right? They researched, and they made a scientific temperament. It is supposedly communism is scientific temperament. The same scientific temperament went ahead and destroyed all the sparrows in the China. What ended as a famine for China for many years. Right? So, okay, Chinese government did this, Chinese people suffered, while not correct, but it's still okay, right? Then, there are multiple mistakes that they have done with the scientific temperament. Very recent being release of COVID pathogen, yeah, across the globe. The scientific mistake of China sufferer the entire world. Right? Some people are very happy that they are making the first sun, or they have already made the first mini sun. I would not be surprised that their next project is making the next black hole. And how many of you are aware that they made the world's largest dam, the Three Gorges Dam? I think a lot of people would be aware of that, but a lot of people
Yeah,
would
that
not.
resulted in actually deceleration of the
Yes,
rotation. I
rotation
think
by 3 seconds or 4 seconds. Yeah,
no, point 0.3 that was 3 microseconds. Actually, that delayed that angular velocity of Earth. That's the extent, but it's not very significant. But we can imagine what they can do. They built an artificial sun. Now that could reach temperatures more than 5 crore degrees Celsius. So now we can actually imagine to what all they are worthy of doing. We should never underestimate the ability of Chinese to go beyond the ability of normal humans to achieve to achieve some scientific breakthroughs that no
they
other
don't have any
civ-
moral on the scientific research, and
yeah,
which
of
also
course.
gets me worried. Right? I mean, today they created a sun. Tomorrow, if
It
they
is a
create a black
worrisome
hole.
issue, आंदोलन जी,
Yeah,
because I am a physicist myself, so जो उन्होंने nuclear fusion reactor जो create किया है, they are considering as a part of so कि इसमें से कुछ हो सकता है. Their research is based on कि इसमें से energy harvestation और यूनिवर्स वो LHC कोलाइडर वाला जो फॉर्मूला है वो वही उन्होंने इम्प्लीकेट करने की कोशिश किया है कि जो LHC तो अभी बंद हो गया है, अब मतलब और रिसर्च चल रहा है उसके ऊपर. तो दे आर ट्राइंग टू बी वॉट एवर हैज बीन डन इन द वेस्ट इन टर्म्स ऑफ साइंस, दे आर ट्राइंग टू एमुलेट एज वेल इन चाइना इटसेल्फ. पर उसके इम्प्लीकेशन इन फ्यूचर गलत हो सकते हैं, बिकॉज इफ यू सी द इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी, दे आर डिनाई दैट कि वायरस यहाँ से ओरिजिनेट नहीं हुआ है, राइट? 27 Beijing scientists denied that कि यहाँ से originate virus नहीं हुआ है. And if you remember, when Western country people are not so kind when it comes to Eastern countries, but when this COVID virus came up, no country in the West except Donald Trump itself called Chinese. Not a Indian variant जब आया था कोरोना वायरस का, there were many people who were actually talking about in the media कि Indian variant आ गया, Indian variant, but nobody said Chinese variant. Nobody said Chinese virus. In fact, in Italy is very racist country actually, but उसमें भी अगर Chinese campaign चला था. तो अभी जब ये बातें निकल कर आ रही हैं तो देयर माइट इट्स अ वेरी हाई पॉसिबिलिटी, क्योंकि जब आया था तो चाइना मेड लॉट ऑफ मनी बाय सेलिंग. जब तक वो वुहान आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल नहीं हुआ था, दे मेड मनी बाय सेलिंग ग्लव्स, मास्क एंड एवरीथिंग until they ran out of it and India had to help them, and later they actually said कि we will help with the vaccination too. तो ये they are not moral when it comes to science, so you never know, in future they will actually try to use this reactor as well against the humanity. So I'm as somebody who belongs to the same field, I'm also very scared कि वो क्या करेंगे आगे इसको लेकर.
अथर्वी जी
एंड
आपने
आंदोलन
जो
जी,
पॉइंट किया था, अथर्वी जी
एक
आई
जस्ट क्विक सेकंड,
टोटली एग्री
क्विक
विद
5 सेकंड पॉइंट में डालना चाहता हूँ. वन मस्ट नॉट इग्नोर दिस कम्युनिज्म, which is the bedrock of their ideology, and that is the most evilest ideology so far we have seen.
no, you will just need
it.
one North Korea type communist guy who is unstable in brain to come and not only destroy entire China but maybe the entire globe as well. Octavian ji, sorry, you were interrupted twice. You go ahead now.
Okay, so अथर्वी जी आपने जो बात कही थी, I totally agree with it. And not just they have created the pandemic, but they are also using pandemic to their advantage as well. नाउ वो था कि ट्रेड वॉर को इन्होंने किस तरह से इन्होंने हॉल्ट कर दिया था पैंडेमिक के चक्कर में, और इसके बाद अब देख लो रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर हो रहा है, दे आर इनडायरेक्टली ट्राइंग टू लेंड सपोर्ट टू द रशियंस, एंड यू नो इन व्हाट वेज, यू नो इट सीम्स सस्पिशियस, और many people will call this a conspiracy theory, but let's just think here,
No, but
some
you
big
can't
cities in
because
China.
Russian currency is much stronger right now.
हाँ, पर
Yeah,
एक
yeah,
बार उनका
of
पॉइंट
course.
सुन लेते हैं।
But we must realize that when the war reached its critical stages, there was a lockdown in China, and many big cities, especially the commercial capital of China, that is Shanghai, had entered into a deliberate lockdown. We had seen how authorities were forcibly trying to push victim out of their houses and keep them in quarantines, and we know what were the conditions of quarantines, as if they were desperate for the quarantine, as if they were desperate to impose the lockdown. And if you will see the economic activities that actually make Shanghai the prominent economic hubs across the globe, many American companies have their manufacturing units in Shanghai, and out of, and in case of lockdown, if Shanghai enters into lockdown, such manufacturing units can suffer heavy losses, and as a result of such losses, American companies would be indirectly affected. When their manufacturing capacity would decrease, that would indirectly impact America's economy. That would reduce the credibility of the reliability and credibility of these companies in terms of their product, in terms of their quantitative ability to manufacture and deliver product to the consumers, and it will also lead to depreciation in quality of their products. That's how they are using pandemic to their advantage, to not only help Russia, but also to cause casualty on the side of United States, without United States being able to take any strong action against the Chinese, because they know that they cannot militarily provide aid to the Russians. But yes, while hurting by hurting Americans and America's economy, they can definitely benefit Russians. And in a long term, we have seen that how Russians kept calm during the war, and how they were very much prepared about the consequences of the sanctions that would ultimately be more that would ultimately be more backfiring towards the Western countries instead of Russia itself. And but one point on which I would disagree with Atharvi, although I would say that she had mentioned a lot of convincing points to which I can also agree to some degree. But yes, if it comes if it comes to synthesis of coronavirus and using it as a bioweapon, I would say that it's not just China that could be suspected for synthesizing this virus, but many of us should know the contribution of Bill Gates in
It's a different
endorsing these
story. He's
vaccine companies,
investor,
especially
but
Pfizer.
we were talking about just China.
Yeah, but we are
What I
slightly
mentioned,
moving
उसमें
away from the
one-sided
topic.
Yeah,
memorandum है,
yeah,
Octavia.
but we should
Bill
also
Gates is
see
another thing. I
the
know the Bill
biolabs
Gates
that operate in
contribution
Ukraine. Yeah, yeah.
to
Just
not
look,
just to
just look
this
at the
COVID
biolabs that
vaccine.
operate in Ukraine, funded by the United States.
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
of course. Not just that, even Bill Gates have been a very major contributor of the milk, milk MILQ kind of company, which actually claims to manufacture artificial baby milk. Just before few days, just 2 weeks after the statement passed by Pfizer that baby milk, sorry, the breast milk of the mother might not be, will be scarce, and 2 weeks after that Bill Gates in made in, so that is completely different story. I mentioned that because we are only talking about China at the moment.
So
We
maybe let
must
us.
also see that China is experimenting upon humans. They are trying to develop some develop artificial hormones or artificial triggers that could actually make men more masculine, as they fear that due to extreme wokeness and influence from the Western ideas, many of the Chinese men have become less aggressive. They have lost masculinity. In order to build masculinity and transform them into more resilient and stronger men and genetically modified men, they have started experimenting some of these some of their some of their vaccines on the military itself. And we also know that they have also built artificial womb like machines where now babies can be artificially grown, and the mother no longer needs to take the pain that she usually undergoes during pregnancy. So we know that they are going beyond the limits of human thinking. We know they can experiment on animals, they can experiment on humans. I won't be surprised if tomorrow they will clone a monkey and a human and try to bring out a more stronger species from them, and claim that now we will upgrade ourselves to more physically and mentally advanced civilization.
They're very sick people. Chinese are very sick.
No, the people are, decent, Miniji. It's not the Chinese people, it is the CCP government. Try to imagine a government which has no risk of being dethroned. Xi Jinping is president for life. Even if tomorrow he goes and commits genocide on Chinese, nobody can remove him from his place. Problem is not people. Chinese people are good people, but this is the CCP government that is problem, which is not letting the collective consciousness of Chinese people reflect in electing a government which will actually be beneficial for people of China. Now that China has become global threat, and it has proven that after the COVID virus, it is not the Chinese people who want to unleash this kind of death and destruction on others. It is the CCP government who wants to do that. So let us go to people who have not spoken as yet. We have Nishaji, we have BG, and we have
Ando sir,
Abhilash ji.
can I come in for 5 seconds?
हाँ जी, आ जाइए फिर मैं निशा जी के पास चलता हूँ.
थैंक यू सर. मैंने ना 2 साल पहले एक न्यूज पढ़ी थी कि जितने भी चाइना के यंग मिलेनियर है, और वो सब ना छोड़ छोड़ के डिफरेंट डिफरेंट कंट्रीज में अपने पैसे लेके चले गए. अब उधर अपना whatever
Yes.
जो भी धंधा कर
हाँ,
रहे
सो
होंगे.
कनाडा के प्रॉपर्टी प्राइसेस बढ़ने का रीजन यही है कि चाइना से जितने भी जो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं, जो बिजनेसमैन हैं, ब्यूरोक्रेट्स वो जिन्होंने करप्शन से पैसा कमाया था, उन्होंने सब धीरे धीरे कनाडा में आके मकान खरीदा, जमीन खरीदी, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. सो कनाडा सर्टन पॉकेट्स हैव रियल एस्टेट प्राइस हाइक इज in like 100%, 150% on these range, and this is all Chinese money which is flowing in, because people want to run away from this kind of regime. Anybody who has the means would try to run away. So over to Nishaji. Now Nisha, you're not audible. Maybe you want to exit and re-enter so that you're audible. Piyush, I think Piyush has also not spoken. Piyush, would you like to share something in the meanwhile? Piyush ji, आप हैं? Let me also, so people from the listener panel who want to talk on the topic, China's growth, is it worth emulating, or is it a menace to begin with?
सर मेरा एक पॉइंट था जो निधि मैम ने कहा ना श्रीलंका का, उसके ऊपर मैं थोड़ा सा बताना चाहता हूँ. आई बीन टू श्रीलंका, तो वहाँ पे आई टॉक टू अ टैक्सी ड्राइवर। वहाँ पे एक्चुअल उसने बताया क्या हुआ कि चाइना ने ना एक हाईवे बनाया था, और वो 2-2.5 घंटे का लंबा हाईवे है टिल एयरपोर्ट। तो चाइना में जैसे हम्बन टोटा है, बैंड टोटा है, और एक पीस है, नाम है मैं भूल गया, बहुत फेमस प्लेस है। वो है तो जनरली लोग 4-5 प्लेस हैं जो चाइना में, वो श्रीलंका में घूम के आते हैं। तो उसने चाइना ने एक हाईवे बनाया था, और उस जब श्रीलंका की गवर्नमेंट बहुत कमजोर थी उस समय, तो उसने क्या करा कि जब पैसे नहीं दे पाई श्रीलंका की गवर्नमेंट, तो उसने टोल टैक्स, जैसे हमारे यहाँ होता है टोल टैक्स, लगा दिया। उसने अपने पूरे पैसे निकाल लिए, एंड इट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल हाईवे। एंड उसके बाद क्या हुआ, पैसे निकालने के बाद भी उसने बोला नहीं, आपका जो सदन है हम्बन टोटा, आप वो मतलब एक एंड ऑफ द श्रीलंका है, तो और वहाँ पे एक ही प्रॉपर्टी है शेरेटन की। तो और वो कोलंबो से कम वो 5-6 घंटे का रास्ता है। तो जनरली हम्बन टोटा क्या था कि जो एंड था वो वहाँ के जो चाइना के वो जो अपने सॉरी श्रीलंका के जो वहाँ पे पीएम प्रेसिडेंट होते थे या राजा टाइप होते थे, वो लोग जाके अपना मतलब साल में 1-2 बार जाते थे अपना अपना रिलैक्सेशन के लिए। तो चाइना ने उसके उसके अगेंस्ट, क्योंकि उसका वो लगता है, तो वहाँ भी उसने हम्बन टोटा भी कब्जा कर लिया। तो दिस वाज द रियल स्टोरी वहाँ पे जो श्रीलंका में हुआ है चाइना का।
Sorry, I got exited for a while. Vindik ji, as a Piyush, you are there. If you want to speak,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, Andolan sir. So, Andolan sir, I don't have the any point to make on this book, but I have to just remind one thing that we are going to host SCO meeting, right? And how relevant it is for India to be in the part of SCO. Just I want
Sorry,
to,
which meeting?
मतलब मैं आपको
Piyush ji, can you be
SCO Shanghai Corporation sir.
Shanghai Corporation, SCO? Okay, okay, okay.
So it is very important for us to attend all the regional negotiation as long as we are given equal footing in terms of voting, and because whomsoever organized this cooperation, they may have started it, but they are not the only uh, kind of stewards of that, right? And India has been always very shrewd and very focused on their interest. You must have seen the SARC is almost gone, बिकॉज सार्क के अलावा हमने एक और ईस्टर्न एशिया के साथ रीजन बिम्स्टेक, इट्स कॉल्ड बिम्स्टेक, हमने डेवलप किया है। तो ऐसे कई कॉपरेशन हैं। So India is very important, power in the Asia, and especially now you can see India is the most growing emerging power in the world. Like you can say that the India is the only larger economy in the world, which will be growing and faster than any other economies. So it is important for India to capture all these forums.
Achha, just I'm getting some information as to some terrorist attack has happened again in the Jammu region towards Vaishno Devi. Neeraj ji or anybody who can confirm this?
Yeah, I think the pilgrims were coming from like 4 people have died, and I think they attacked the bus, and many people are injured in that. So I think it happened in Katra.
Yeah. See, Andolanji, there is always a pattern,
It
right?
happens
Every time.
yesterday. It
Yeah.
happened yesterday only.
Yeah. See, there is a pattern. Every time you see that government of India is doing things, trying to get things normalized in Jammu and Kashmir, the Pakistan, entire Pakistan state, उनको पेट में मरोड़े पड़ने लगती हैं, and they keep sending people to create more disturbance in our society, and that has always been the pattern. and China is actually behind, as their support. Without China's support, पाकिस्तान की हिम्मत नहीं हो सकती ये सब करने की. पहले उसके साथ अमेरिका था और अब चाइना है. So China is also a very bad neighbor in terms of, if you want to have a neighbor, China is the worst neighbor you want to have, because it will not just eschew your property, it will not disenfranchise you, it will also instigate other neighbors to attack you, and that is Chinese model.
Yes, so
But
China,
अच्छा,
even
जस्ट
though
वन सेकेंड ए जी,
Pakistan,
मैं 5 मिनट के लिए हूँ रूम में, पर मैनेज नहीं कर पाऊंगा. आप थोड़ा सा देखिएगा, मैं 5 मिनट में आ रहा हूँ.
जी जी जी, अथर्व जी बोलिए.
China is supposed to train 12 engineers or scientists of Pakistan's NESCOM, which is actually run by Pakistan Army's SPD, and aerodynamics and flight mechanics in PLA Research Institute. So even though they are not able to pay anything back, they are doing it, and they will also China will also support Pakistan in enhancing its counter-terrorism capability and help its own thwart foreign conspiracies against Pak-China relationships. तो ये उन्होंने एक तरह का आईटी सेक्टर भी वो सेट कर रहे हैं, ये चाइनीज फॉरेन मिनिस्टर का बयान है. So they are actually working towards strengthening their own relationship actually. But at the same time, because China and Japan doesn't go along, so Japan has proposed to double its defense budget as well. अभी जो तो ये ना हो सकता हो इन फ्यूचर इंडिया पे बहुत बहुत अटैक हो और ज्यादा पाकिस्तान की तरफ से, and the machinery would be made in China, or at least trained to be, they might have gotten trained by Chinese scientists to make it in Pakistan itself. और
okay,
दूसरा, चाइना की इकोनॉमी मुझे मेरी नज़र में इसलिए फ्लॉड है ना, क्योंकि वो मोनोएथिस्टिक इकोनॉमी जैसी है. अगर आपने देखा, अगर आप लोगों को पता होगा तो 2008-2009 में जब रिसेशन आया था तो चाइना में राइट्स हो गई थी बिकॉज ऑफ द रिसेशन. एंड इस तरह के रिसेशन के वक्त इंडिया में उतना फर्क नहीं पड़ता, बिकॉज इंडियन पॉलिसीज और लोग यहाँ पे बहुत इंडिपेंडेंट हैं व्हेन इट कम्स टू टेक्नोलॉजी एंड एवरीथिंग. और चाइना का क्या रहता है ना कि जैसे अगर उन्होंने खिलौने प्रोड्यूस किए चीपली, तो वो सिर्फ उसको प्रोड्यूस करते करते चले जाते हैं. तो वन टाइप ऑफ प्रोडक्ट पे जब डिपेंड होने लगती है ना आपकी इकोनॉमी, उसमें वैरायटी नहीं होती, तब ऐसी इकोनॉमी का क्रैश होना बहुत जल्दी होता है. इसीलिए आई ऑलवेज से कि इवन इफ इन व्हेन इट कम्स टू इंडिया, यहाँ जरूरी है कि आप वैरायटी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स बनाएं. एक ही प्रोडक्ट जस्ट बिकॉज वो बिक रहा है तो बार बार उसे ना बनाए. ये मत try to design the market in your own way. Don't go with the western market की avocado वहाँ खाया जा रहा है तो यहाँ पे ढेर सारे सिर्फ avocado ही avocado ला दो मार्केट में, एंड भूल जाओ कि अपना जेनेटिक सीड स्टॉक क्या है यहाँ का खुद का. Instead of influencing the market, we get influenced by the market, and we also try to design our own products according to the western market or market influenced, or the Indian market which is actually influenced by the outside. So if we want to do better, we have to influence the market according to us, not get influenced by the market. ये बहुत जरूरी है, ये बात याद रखना.
One
If
thing,
somebody wants
Atharvi,
to add.
That's a very brilliant point, Atharvi, you made, because मैं मिनी जी, आपने देखा होगा, आप यूएस में रहते हैं, आपको यूएस में अगर एक लंच लेना है, डिसेंट लंच, तो वो आप पॉश से पॉश एरिया में चले जाएं या मतलब मिडिल क्लास एरिया में चले जाएं, वो $10-12 से टेक अवे, मैं टेक अवे की बात कर रहा हूँ, रेस्टोरेंट की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, टेक अवे में $10-12 से कम नहीं मिलेगा.
yes,
लेकिन इंडिया एक ऐसा वाहिद मुल्क है जिसमें हर तबके के इंसान के लिए एक अपना खुद का मार्केट है. तो आपको ₹5, ₹1 की इडली भी मिल सकती है और ₹100 का डोसा भी मिल सकता है.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल सही कहा. अब जहाँ
ये
एक बात अथर्वी, जो आप कह
हाँ
रहे थे
मिनी
ना,
जी, गो अहेड.
आप कह रहे थे कि इंडिया के लिए ये बहुत, चाइना जो है इट इज़ द वर्स्ट कंट्री एज ए नेबर, वो तो बिल्कुल ठीक बात है. लेकिन इंडिया ने अपना इसका इंतज़ाम, जो जो नई गवर्नमेंट आई है, इसने इंतज़ाम किया है इसका. इसने वियतनाम, साउथ कोरिया, जापान, इन
जापान
कंट्रीज के
में।
जापान, राइट, इन कंट्रीज के साथ बहुत अच्छे संबंध बनाए, और छोटी छोटी बाकी कंट्रीज भी जिनकी सरहदें हम लोग शेयर करते हैं चाइना के साथ एंड इंडिया के साथ, जो छोटे छोटे नेशंस हैं जो हम पे डिपेंड करते हैं, सबके साथ अच्छे रिलेशन बनाए हैं। और उनको कैसे वियतनाम को जहाँ तक मुझे मालूम है उनको पनडुब्बियाँ दी हैं, और सारी कंट्रीज को सपोर्ट करते हैं कि जो भी सो दैट हैज़ रियली चैलेंज्ड जो चाइना है उसको, उससे पहले कभी नहीं था। वो अपना बिल्कुल जैसे कहते हैं ना एब्सोल्यूट बन के कर रहा था काम, जो भी कर रहा था, जितना मर्जी जो ऑक्यूपाई करनी है ज़मीन कर ली। लेकिन अब जो है ना वो सोचता है 5 बार। मुझे कभी नहीं लगता कि अब वो इंडिया के साथ कभी पंगा लेगा, जब तक कि हमारे मतलब इस तरह की पॉलिसी बनी रही कि सारे ऑल अराउंड द कंट्रीज जो इसकी बाउंड्री पे लगती हैं उनका हमारे साथ अच्छे संबंध हों। So I don't think he's that big threat as it was before.
नो, अभी अभी मैम वो अब क्या है ना, कुछ लोग हेल्प करते हैं इनडायरेक्ट थ्रेट में और कुछ लोग डायरेक्टली करते हैं। तो अभी चाइना ने पाकिस्तान के साथ भी एग्रीमेंट किया है टू एक्चुअली मेक सम 12 to 13 टेराफ्लॉप्स सुपर कंप्यूटर्स, जो कि हाई कैपेसिटी होती है उसकी, तो टू ऑपरेट दम। तो वो भी एक क्योंकि उनके पास तो द बेसिकली व्हाट चाइना इज ट्राइंग टू डू इज इंक्रीज इट्स मिलिट्री प्रेजेंस ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड बाय हेल्पिंग अदर पीपल। जिस तरह से यूएस का स्ट्रेटेजी था कि वो इन्वेट करता था इन द नेम ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी, ये इन्वेट करता है, ये इकोनॉमिक कॉलोनाइजेशन करता है, विच इज द रीसेंट मॉडर्न डे कॉलोनाइजेशन। तो ये जहाँ भी जाता है वहाँ पे अपने बंदे रखते हैं यहाँ पे ये, और कोशिश करते हैं कि वहाँ की जितनी भी हेल्प चाहिए उस कंट्री को वो दें, और उनके बदले में दे विल बी द वन डोमिनेटिंग पावर। इट इज बट द प्रॉब्लम विच इज ओके, अगर आपकी कंट्री पुअर है तो यू कैन मेक एग्रीमेंट की इंस्टेंट अगर वो डेवलपमेंट कर रहे हैं। बट द थिंग प्रॉब्लमेटिक ओवर हियर थिंग इज हियर दैट दे आर नॉट ह्यूमन पीपल, दे आर नॉट ह्यूमन, दे विल गो टू एनी एक्सटेंट टू डोमिनेट द टेक्नोलॉजी। और जब मोनोएथिस्टिक कल्चर की बात आती है ना, जब कम्युनिज्म, मार्क्सिज्म, एब्राहमिक कल्चर, ये मोनोथिस्टिक बिहेवियर है, और वो हमेशा से पूजा पद्धति तक लिमिट नहीं होता, ये सब खाने पीने सब में आता है। तो जब हम लोग बड़े हो रहे थे ना, तो ढेर सारे तरह के चावल दिखते होंगे आपको, हर जगह अब सिर्फ बासमती राइस दिखता है। अभी ये भी एक तरह का टेरर फॉर्म है, इसको मैं अभी डिस्क्लोज नहीं करूंगी, बट लाइक व्हेन यू गो टू टर्की, मीट द फर्स्ट लेडी एंड एवरीथिंग, देयर इज लॉट ऑफ दैट हैज आल्सो टू डू विद द क्रॉप, कि कौन सा क्रॉप उगाना है। तो और ताकि इंडिया में वही क्रॉप उगे, एक ही टाइप का चावल उगे, आप उगाओगे तो आपका सॉइल इरोजन होता है उससे, और आप ढेर तरीके का खाना नहीं खाओगे तो कहीं ना कहीं आपकी हेल्थ भी उतनी अच्छी नहीं होती है। तो जो हमारे रीजनल फूड थे वो जा चुके हैं अभी।
अथर्व जी,
तो एवरीबॉडी इज लाइक नो वी वांट टू एंटर ईट बासमती पिंक राइस, ब्राउन राइस। अब एवरीबॉडी वांट ब्राउन राइस, वाज मोर इनटू साउथ इंडिया, बट अब वो भी व्हाइट राइस ही खाते हैं। उससे क्या होता है कि
अथर्व जी,
क्योंकि आपका बाहर की इकोनॉमी बोलती है कि व्हाइट राइस
अथर्व
I
चाहिए।
जी,
think
अरे
somebody
एक
want to
एक
say
बात,
something.
हाँ
मैं
हाँ,
मैं कह रहा था,
बोलिए।
मैं कह रहा था वो जो आप जो पहला पॉइंट दे रहे थे ना, उस पे जरा थोड़ा फोकस करते हैं कि किस तरह से चाइना अपने नेबरहुड कंट्रीज को कैप्चर करता है और सबसे बड़ा काम करता है इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस जो है जैसे हैं। अभी आपने देखा होगा डब्ल्यूएचओ का जो पूरा स्टांस है जब से कोविड ब्रेकआउट हुआ अभी तक, आपको इसमें हर जगह चाइना का फुटप्रिंट मिलेगा। इतना मतलब बेहुदा और इतना बेशर्मी की तरीके से डब्ल्यूएचओ ने चाइना के रोल को, चाइना की कंडीशंस को अंडर प्ले किया है। अभी आपने देखा है कि रिपोर्ट आई थी बीच में, अभी 2-3 दिन पहले आई थी, इस पे बहुत हंगामा हो रहा था कि डब्ल्यूएचओ ने ये बताया कि इंडिया ने अपने जो नंबर्स हैं वो 10 टाइम्स कम बताए हैं डेथ के, और वो उनका
Yes,
जो एविडेंस था। ठीक है, अब
what
उसी
they're
रिपोर्ट
saying.
ने, एक मिनट मिनी
Yes,
जी मैं अपनी बात खत्म करूं, उसी रिपोर्ट में जहां उन्होंने कहा है कि इंडिया ने 10 टाइम्स अपने अंडर रिपोर्टिंग की है, जो एक मैथमेटिकल मॉडलिंग से उन्होंने एस्टेब्लिश किया है, उसी रिपोर्ट ने चाइना में कोविड से डेथ कितनी बताई है मालूम है? -6। मतलब कि कोविड के बाद 6 लोग जो मर गए थे वो बाद में वापस जिंदा हो गए। तो ये इनका चाइना का, और इसका इतना ब्लेटेंट बेशर्मी से ये सब हो रहा है, कोई डब्ल्यूएचओ की जो है विश्वसनीयता पे प्रश्न भी नहीं उठा सक रहा है। जी मिनी जी बोलिए।
या उन्होंने अभी रिपोर्ट भेजी कि 2.2 मिलियन से लेके 9.7 मिलियन तक लोग जो हैं वो कोविड से मरे हैं भारत में। डू यू सी द डिफरेंस? जैसे
हाँ
5 मिलियन
वेरिएशन,
इन
हाँ
बिटवीन
वेरिएशन
से
कितना है।
कोई, हाँ यू नो, हाँ या लाइक इट्स नथिंग, यू नो। आर यू किडिंग? 2.2 मिलियन ऑलरेडी इज लॉट, और उसके बाद फिर 9.7 मिलियन, इतने लोग,
एक
अनबिलीवेबल।
और बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट है, मैं ना थाईलैंड में रहा हूँ, तो थाईलैंड का कई चीजों के लिए जाना जाता है, लेकिन आपको पता है जो चीज सबसे कुख्यात होती है उसके लिए लोग याद रखते हैं। थाईलैंड सेक्स टूरिज्म के लिए बहुत कुख्यात है। हालांकि थाईलैंड इज नॉट ऑल अबाउट सेक्स वर्कर, लेकिन जो इंसान को जो अच्छी लगती चीज है उसी को याद रखता है। तो थाईलैंड में जो ये पूरा सिस्टम शुरू हुआ ना सेक्स वर्कर का, ये सिस्टम शुरू करवाने वाले चाइनीज मर्चेंट्स थे। थाई राजा जो थे चक्री डायनेस्टी के, उन्होंने चाइनीज मर्चेंट्स को बुलाया उनकी इकोनॉमी को स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए, और इनको राजा ने जो अलाउ किया इकोनॉमी में काम करने के लिए, एक्सक्यूज मी, तो उसमें ना इन लोगों ने क्या किया कि एज मच एज दे यूज द थाई कल्चर एंड देयर इकोनॉमी एंड देयर मार्केट, दे आल्सो यूज देयर थाई पीपल एंड sold them as the sex slaves, basically pass it on from one merchant to another. And eventually, these merchants figure out that if you keep selling these women, you can create a whole economy based on sex workers and sex industry. और जो आज आप थाईलैंड में देख रहे हो ये भी चाइनीज मर्चेंट की देन है।
That's horrible.
Yeah, but that is will be natural because WHO में चाइना का जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है 2014 के बाद 52% इंक्रीज हुआ है, और it's nothing still in comparison to what US contributes via Bill and Gate Melinda whatever foundation they have. But unka 52% increase means they are going to have influence, little bit influence on that, and I think the largest contributor is Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation. तो हो सकता है उनका भी इन्फ्लुएंस है दैट दे डू नॉट वांटेड टू पॉइंट आउट एट चाइना। और चाइना का एक और जो हेल्थ सिल्क रूट है जिसके बारे में आपने सुना होगा, तो WHO का अपना एक एजेंडा है कि 2030 तक बहुत सारे रूट्स जो हैं हेल्थ सिल्क रूट से कवर कंट्रीज को कवर किया जाए व्हेन इट कम्स टू हेल्थ बेनिफिशियरीज और अपनी स्कीम्स चलाने के लिए। तो उनका है कि जो सिल्क रूट चाइना बनवा रहा था, तो इस रूट पे जितने भी कंट्रीज कवर होंगी WHO विल बी एबल टू इन्फ्लुएंस ऑन दैट बेस्ड ऑन दी देयर ओन, क्या बोलते हैं,
इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर,
on
चाइना फंडेड देयर
infrastructure.
बिल्डिंग्स इन ऑल दीज
Yes,
कंट्रीज।
so that is why, like Tedros, and Tedros is not from a white background, right? So
Yeah, I think Piyush want to say something too.
yeah, Piyush, go ahead.
Yeah, I I will just like to put one point. It will be unjustified if you think that China, Pakistan, or other, even United States of America, will not indulge in your matter, or they won't do unethical hacking or unethical work in your nation. Even I will just I would like to keep a one point. Even you will find some articles regarding it. India did the espionage and you can say the cyber ops operations in several other countries. Even we did it successfully, right? So when someone says like that, any other country just make an influence or just do something wrong in our country, it is unjustification, right? You should not say this openly. In according to my perspective, that's it.
Um, Anyone else want to say something? Okay, Abhilash, please go ahead. We can't hear you, Abhilash. You are unmuted, but we can't hear you.
मिनी जी मैं जरा 5 मिनट में आता हूँ।
जरूर जरूर जरूर। Yes, Abhilash, go ahead, please.
Hello, hello.
Hi, we can hear you now.
Yeah, so I'm having dinner right now, so I would speak after 5 or 10 minutes. Would that be okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, fine.
Okay, Harvey, I'm sorry, you want to say something?
I'm not sure if this WHO head Dr. Tedros from Ethiopia had some sort of deal with the Chinese separately, if he had worked in China or have any relationship with the CCP itself.
Yeah, China has lobbies everywhere,
Maybe.
in US, everywhere. um, ट्रम्प ने अपना हाथ खींच लिया था, आई नो, आफ्टर कोविड, यू नो, दीज पीपल केप्ट क्वाइट, सो उसने, ट्रम्प ने कहा आई वोंट सपोर्ट एनी मोर, आई वोंट पुट सो मच मनी इनटू हु, एंड यू नो, उसके बाद अब बाइडन आए तो ही स्टार्टेड इट ऑल ओवर अगेन. दैट्स द फर्स्ट थिंग ही डिड, इट वाज यू नो contributing to the WHO because his son, you know, he's involved with the um, Hunter Biden. उसका एक बड़ा किस्सा है, चाइना के साथ डील चल रही है. सो दैट्स द प्रॉब्लम. बट अदरवाइज चाइना को तो बिल्कुल नीचे गिराना चाहिए इसको, ये बहुत ही क्रूअल कंट्री है. यस विंडिक जी, प्लीज गो हैड.
नमस्ते मिनी जी, नमस्ते एवरीवन. जी, टॉपिक तो बहुत ही अच्छा है. मैं बोलना चाहूँगा चाइनीज़ ग्रोथ के बारे में. सबसे पहले हम बात करते हैं तो किस टाइप की ग्रोथ के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं, कि फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन जो हम लोग पूछना चाहेंगे खुद से इज whom has this growth benefited and who have suffered because of it. तो अगर आप ब्रेकिंग ऑफ इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड लॉस को ग्रोथ बोलें, या इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी लॉस का जोक बनाने को ग्रोथ बोलें, पूरी की पूरी कंट्रीज को डेट ट्रैप में डालने को ग्रोथ बोलें, इन्फ्लिक्टिंग द वर्ल्ड विद द ग्लोबल पैंडेमिक, उसके बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन छुपाने को, और पोटेंशियल हेल्थ रिस्क को पूरी दुनिया से छुपाने को अगर आप ग्रोथ बोलें, तो वो किस टाइप की ग्रोथ है. आप अगर आप सिर्फ खुद के सेल्फिश इंटरेस्ट को देख रहे हैं और बाकी ग्लोबल एस्पिरेशंस को आप बिल्कुल मद्देनजर नहीं रखते, उनको आप बिल्कुल डिस्काउंट करके मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं एक तरीके से, आप ह्यूमन राइट्स इन्फ्लिक्ट कर रहे हैं अपनी खुद की पॉपुलेशन पे, और गवर्नमेंट सैंक्शनड प्रोग्राम्स के थ्रू कर रहे हैं, मतलब लाइक एवरीथिंग इज लिटरली ऑन पेपर, उसको आप ग्रोथ बोल रहे हैं. कि आप उसको बोल रहे हैं कि वर्ल्ड मार्केट्स को फ्लडिंग द प्रोडक्ट्स विद जस्ट बिकॉज दे आर लोअर कॉस्ट, एंड इन ऑर्डर टू मेक देम चीप यू आर कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग विद हेल्थ एंड सेफ्टी कंसर्न्स. लेड के केमिकल्स से कलर मतलब बच्चों की चीज़ें बना रहे हैं, तो पीपल आर डाइंग ऑफ कैंसर एवरीवेयर. आप पूरे लाइक जो लाइक एंटी डंपिंग लॉज है उनको आप कंप्लीटली डिसरिगार्ड करके दूसरी कंट्रीज में अपने प्रोडक्ट्स बेच रहे हैं. तो ये तो पूरा का पूरा सेल्फिश ही दिख रहा है. हम लोग ने ग्रोथ किसको बोलते हैं, कि कोई कंट्री ग्रो करती है तो उसके साथ में उसके आसपास नेबर्स भी ग्रो करते हैं. हमने कभी सुना है कि चाइना के आसपास की किसी भी कोई भी और कंट्री में ग्रोथ हुई है बिकॉज चाइना में ग्रोथ हुई है?
पर इसमें विंडिक जी एक छोटा सा पॉइंट ये भी है, हैज द चाइनीज ग्रोथ हेल्प्ड द चाइनीज पीपल, और इट दैट ग्रोथ हैज ओनली रिमेन्ड इन द हैंड्स ऑफ सीसीपी and its
एग्जैक्टली,
functionaries? That's also a
फैंटास्टिक
big
पॉइंट.
problem. Had China's growth helped the Chinese people, I would have still said, okay, fair enough, they are doing something good for their people.
हाँ,
But is the growth story or the policy good for the people of China as well? That's also a big question mark.
Exactly. And I was just going to close with that, Andolanji. Good that you made the point. I was going to close by saying that let us not call it Chinese growth. Let us call it the CCP growth. And जिस तरीके से मिनी जी आपने बताया कि यूएस में और हर जगह पे इनफैक्ट एक डेटाबेस लीक हुआ था. आई एक्चुअली हैव दैट डेटाबेस इन CSV फॉर्मेट, जिसके अंदर
22
जो
मिलियन जो लोगों का जो
हाँ,
बोला
I have
था
the
कि
names of those CCP people who were basically जो spies थे, who hid
पांडा
their
वाले ना,
information from.
प्रकाश पांडा और हाफनियम, किसकी बात, क्योंकि प्रकाश पांडा, हाफनियम, निकल, तीन तीन है ऐसे
हाँ,
ऑर्गेनाइजेशन.
मेरे पास आई थिंक वो पांडा वाला है डेटाबेस.
अच्छा.
But there were also like 10,000 people who were caught in very high positions in the US, who had actually hit and who are now citizens, और जो बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज की टॉप नॉच पोजीशंस में बैठे हैं, and who hit their CCP background या CCP की ट्रेनिंग का background they hit, which is basically like fraud, and they were sent back to China, and उनके ऊपर inquiry चल रही थी. And this is just like tip of the iceberg. I mean, I live in the US and I've been in the job market, so I've heard cases and I've experienced cases in which there's a clear cut discrimination when more often than not when people are interviewing you, they tend to basically just like आपके साथ अच्छे से interview होएगा, but you will never know what went wrong, and then you will get a rejection mail or something like that. And I have not experienced it personally. A couple of my friends have, and then मतलब it's quite common. So, and I remember one of my colleagues actually making a comment कि यहाँ पे do you not know like कि US में कितने Chinese spies हैं, and at that time I was very naive, तो मुझे पता नहीं था, but now I know it's actually the fact. In fact, in New York there is the Bank of China का एक particular floor है, it's famous for basically being the entire floor given to the CCP. उस पे सिर्फ CCP के agents बैठते हैं under the garb of being bank employees. So all these things are anyway. This is all without evidence, but I want to come to the point that Miniji was talking about. अब हम लोग यूएस की क्या बात कर रहे हैं, इनफैक्ट क्लब हाउस पे देख लीजिए, देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ पीपल हु आर सीसीपी क्लियर सीसीपी एजेंट्स, एंड what's even more interesting and funny is that these people will actually run rooms that are anti-Pakistan in a lot of cases, who will basically stand shoulder to shoulder with us when it comes to talking about Islamophobia and all these kinds of topics that the ISI gang runs, because it suits their interest. But have we ever seen them speaking anything good about India? No, because they don't agree with our model. They don't agree that you grow and you grow your neighborhood together. Neighborhood comes first. Sending free vaccines to countries. They will always make fun of it. And it's not like that they are even like they owe their allegiance to China. No, it just happens that they're in China, but they owe their complete allegiance to CCP. The moment you start questioning CCP, they will backtrack and you will be on the other side of the debate with them. So let's call it CCP growth, because I think China is much larger than the party that owns it, just like India is much larger than any political party that basically has the power. So let's call it CCP growth. Let's call it for what it is, a group of people benefiting from the collective misery and deprivation of the rest of the world's population and even the own Chinese population.
Just to add into what Vindik was saying, there was a report where it says that Chinese intelligence was involved into collecting data from Twitter, Facebook, and not Clubhouse so far, but maybe Clubhouse also now. Also, that they have some sort of software. They also try to filter the data based on the languages, so they know that what sort of topic are being researched outside China to target the foreign policies and to actually tell them that what should be their next move. Also, even in Britain, they actually allegedly said that some spies have infiltrated into UK Parliament to influence British politics. So it's not something new what we see in the West. We are seeing that in China as well. So that's how the world goes on. This information is to actually tell that please be on your toes, that kind of thing.
I just want to talk about one system which is called as Hakao system in China, in which the rural labor is not allowed to work in the urban areas. So if they want to do that, they have to apply for the permission. So it is like getting a permission to work in these industries and these setups in the cities. And this is very discriminatory. Few days back somebody was talking about freedom of speech. I already told you that so many journalists are jailed in China, and this is apartheid also, because somebody used this apartheid. These CCP agents were using these terminologies for the the largest democracy of the world, India. But I want to tell you that how this system was used against the Tibetans. The Han Chinese were getting these licenses, these permissions easily, and the Tibetans were discriminated. So this is what we call apartheid. So if any CCP agent is listening, then they should know that this is what apartheid is. When you discriminate your own people,
That's what apartheid is. And this system is discriminatory in itself. And it introduces systemic failures because there will be bureaucratic red tape, and it promotes corruption also. Yeah.
Sorry.
Can I chime in,
Uh,
Hadeep?
yeah, who's this?
This is Abhilash. Hello.
Yeah, Abhilash, go ahead. And I think Das and Ali have not spoken, so after Abhilash, we'll ask Das and Ali to come in.
Okay, thank you so much, Andaman. So, uh, people consider that China is a totalitarian government, but I don't think so because you know what? In the world history, there's nothing like absolutism. So, rulers in a particular government has to incentivize I mean incentivize a particular population so that they could rule because they are incapable of ruling by themselves, you know. So you know what? I mean, that's why um, this particular thing that is happening. You know what? And this recent, uh, China is going to have I think, a congress in later in this year. So Xi Jinping uh, is going to show a strong face. If he won't be able to do that, I think it would be the end of his career. So I think there's so many things we need to consider here because the Congress is going to be held. I mean, with the coming of the Xi Jinping and different things has happened. Like take the consideration of consider this particular thing, like I mean increasing surveillance in the Chinese society, then purging of the rivals, then I mean, and so many things has happened. So such things would create. I mean the elite who are in CCP, that such type of such type of action like purging of rivals, increasing surveillance, such type of thing would create uh, a lot of antagonizing feeling among them, and they that would put CCP, Xi Jinping to be in fact at odds with those elite. So that would create a faction, and CCP could implode from inside. So there are a lot of things here we need to consider. Um, Another thing is that you know what? Due to this zero COVID policy in China, 87% of the trade and that is not happening between cities Shanghai and Guangzhou. These cities are just roads are being blocked there, and trucks are not uh, getting past those blocks. So though the whole manufacturing sector is in a stalemate. There is nothing happening there. So it would put China's economy into a never returning downturn, I think. Uh, Another thing is that you know what, and the whole system of agriculture that significantly occur in the northeastern part of China, and that is dependent upon those farmers getting commercial seeds from different private entities. Because you know, due to this zero COVID policy, there um, there is no such. Market available for them. So the whole system of agriculture crops will be of nothing. Chinese farmer will not be able to produce anything in the next year. So that would create a disharmony and disorder in the Chinese society as well. So there are a lot of things is happening in Chinese society. The recent zero COVID policy also, upset a lot of citizen in China as well, because you know what, and the grassroots level official who actually has the authority to control their citizen are uh, hell bent on I mean satisfying their master and in the CCP. So they need to actually they need to put H low H and H few number H they could. So that's why they are putting into they're putting measures like a strict lockdown and I mean they're putting a lot of streets into no-go zone, and such type of things would create a starvation in the Chinese populace because you know what, for so many days there is no provision that is being supplied to them, and they are starving, literally starving there. There have been so many reports of doors being walled. Yeah. So
30 seconds for conclusion.
yeah, yeah. So there are so many reports of doors being well so that they would not get out and just zero COVID policy would be maintained. So you know what, this such type of action would create a lot of resentment in the society, and I think Chinese society is going to implode within some decades or within some years. I think. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think Das has not spoken, and we have few new speakers, Dr. Praveen Sinha and Sam. So Das, would you like to share something?
Yeah, definitely. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah. So I partially agree with the things the previous speaker he have told. See, in my perspective, whether it's democracy or whether it's an autocratic society, whatever it may be, but still all the policies that are being formulated is completely up to the bureaucrats over here. So we can't say that Russia is fighting the war with Ukraine. It's completely Putin's decision to do that, and even a lot of Russian speaking people and even Russian citizens are against that. So it's like we can't say that this is the growth of CCP and all. That's how the world works. So even in democratic states, even if you're looking at the West, all the policy makers in most of the instances they do not reflect the thoughts of the layman. So unfortunately that is how the world now functions. And apart from this, what we need to look is, see, first we need to solve in my opinion, if Russia, China, and India, if they are leaving back all the differences and we are working together, this part of the world will be on the throne. So every country in the West will be looking forward for the things that Asian countries does. But unfortunately the West is not going to let that to happen. So having said that, first of all we need to sort out the differences with China. So we need to look back at the history. So before some 200 years or 300 years, a lot of Indian scholars and Indian saints, they were been to China, and to name a few like Kumarajiva or Bodhidharma, like a lot of Indian scholars and saints, they went to China, they took Buddhism over there, and they completely Sanskritized the Chinese culture over there. It was a good relationship until early I would say before the Mughals came here, everything was cordial, and all of a sudden we lost the understanding between our Chinese neighbors, and we know how relationship now is. So the primary issue between India and China, the primary problem is the border dispute. So first we need to understand that in order to settle a border, there should be a few processes like demarcation, delineation. So first a government should propose a border.
Dasa,
Yeah.
Dasa, the topic of the discussion is not the Indo-China relationship, but the
Okay.
Chinese growth model. And our focus is more on what is the projected propaganda of the CPC with respect to the growth of the Chinese economy, and is it a model worth emulating? So it's not so much India specific. We do not want to discuss India today because we do that in multiple of our rooms, multiple times
Got you.
during
Yeah,
the day.
yeah. I understood. So, in my opinion, okay, well, I would take a stand that it's like whatever they are going to do, let them do. But primarily, the disputes between India and China should be settled. So that is what is we should concentrate, and that is what is I'm looking forward for. And I have nothing to say about anything else. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah, but that's of the the if a lot of people are unaware of the situation. India has shown its inclination to settle the disputes multiple times. They have even requested China to give a map of what they claim as their territory. In the last 70 years, China has not provided even a single map of the claim. Do you know the reason
Uh,
why?
I guess no. I guess no. They have released a lot of official, maps during 1959. If
No,
I'm not wrong.
so they have released multiple maps, and all those maps
Mhm.
are different. India has formally asked them multiple times since 1952 to
Mhm.
give them a map so that a discussion could be initiated. So India has given a map, and India has put forward a official position that this is what India claims to be its territory along the Chinese border. Chinese have not given a single map. They gave once and then they took it back in 63, if
Uh,
I am, if I'm not mistaken.
mhm.
So,
So,
yeah. So the reason is you cannot settle a dispute, till the time the opposite party tells you what exactly is the dispute.
got you. So, if I'm not wrong, during 1954, when G219 highway was, laid in Aksai Chin region. So, see, if a country is officially releasing a map and, if it's claiming that these are territories, it means that they are giving a border. So, that is
So
what
that's
I'm.
then what is the harm? If you go through, maybe just go through this discussion between India and China. It is not our claim to understand what is the Chinese position. It is for us, when officials engage with each other, right? When they sit on the negotiating table, they do not assume a map to be the Chinese position, right? Similarly, China cannot assume the map of India as the official position, right?
Mhm.
Because that has not been given under a negotiated discussion. So all the border and the finer details of the border are not being able
I
to solve
wasn't aware
by
that,
the map which China presents on the atlas. Yeah. So which is what I'm making, a lot of people aware. A lot of people think that it is on
Mhm.
the onus on India to solve the problem, and somewhere, India is not ready to discuss, negotiate. India has
Okay.
given its official map multiple times. China only gave it once in the last 70 years and took it back, right? And
I
said
think
this is
very.
not our official position. There is a reason why they do not want to settle the dispute.
Mhm.
So, somewhere we need to understand that this is the facts, and we can go and look at the official documents.
Mhm.
Even if you see the latest Galwan issue,
Yeah.
there had been 16 rounds of talks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, there is a
Yeah.
reason that they are talking. Before that, they were not even talking before this Galwan clash.
Mhm.
I would
So.
not tell you why they are talking,
Mhm.
but people come on a negotiating table if you have to gain something and I have to gain something, or both have something to lose. Earlier,
Mhm.
they had nothing to lose, they never. So in 2013, during the Manmohan Singh regime, they
Mhm.
acquired 600 square kilometers of land in Ladakh, which is called salami slicing, slow
Okay.
acquisition. They never came on the table to discuss it. Manmohan Singh just let it go.
Mhm. But
There is a reason that they are talking to us in the 16th round of discussion after the Galwan clash. I would not state that on a public platform, but they also have certain things to lose if they don't negotiate.
but a few of the Rajya Sabha MPs they say that even now they have occupied considerable territory in
Yes,
Ladakh,
yes,
but government is not
yes,
disclosing it. A
yes,
few
yes.
top
Which is which is
bureaucratic
which is what I
circles.
said, Darcy. देखिए होता क्या ना, when you are in a dispute, let's say two people are going to a thanedar, right? both have taken 100 rupees from each other. तो किसी ने दूसरे की जेब से 100 रुपए निकाल लिए, दूसरे ने दूसरे की जेब से मोबाइल फोन निकाल लिया.
Sorry,
तो
I'm
हमेशा
from down south of
okay,
India.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, so let me speak in English. So let's say
yeah,
two people having a dispute. One is claiming that he has taken 100 rupees from my pocket. The other one is claiming that he has taken out my pen from my pocket. Right?
yeah. Mm.
Nobody would accept that he has taken 100 rupees or the other guy will accept that he has taken the pen. They will accuse the other that you have taken 100 rupees. The other guy will say, you have taken my pen.
Mm, mm.
And the reason they are negotiating because one guy has 100 rupees, the other guy has pen. So whatever Rajya Sabha MPs are telling is maybe true. But there are certain things. If somebody goes and says, no, I have taken the pen, what the police guy will say? Put this in jail. He's the culprit. What India is not saying what it has taken. And this should not be spoken on the public platforms. There is a
Got
reason
it.
they are coming to negotiate for 16 rounds because they have either something to lose or something to gain. Otherwise, they would not have come to negotiating table for 16 rounds.
I have heard something
Yeah, you're not audible.
from a few that China, uses this as their strategy. After doing that, they will bargain something else. It seems like trade benefits or something else. So they use this as a strategy to, threaten their neighbors
So
and to prove the
precisely
world
my
that
point, Dasji.
they are dominating
Precisely
the
my
entire
point,
Asia.
Dasji. There is a reason they are not giving us the maps from the last 70 years. It's precisely that they want to behave like gundas. That we will come occupy certain portion of your land and we will only release this after you grant us some accesses. So this is the issue. And you can't deal with such people on a negotiating table until and unless you have something of theirs also with you, isn't it? So you yourself are accepting these are a difficult party to deal with.
But why haven't we just going or fighting a war with them or is of course yeah it'll dig our pockets deep. Is that the only reason or why
No, it is not the
aren't
only
we
reason.
demonstrating our power? Yeah.
We did that, right? In the last 5 years, have you seen any gap in demonstration of power, whether it was protecting the interest of Bhutan or whether it was protecting our own interest in Galwan or other points? We demonstrated that, we bloodied the nose, isn't it? It was earlier governments who were threatened, not the current one. That is for sure.
Got it. Yeah.
Earlier government, did you ever hear that in Manmohan Singh government, Chinese is having 16 rounds of discussion? Did you ever hear this?
No, I haven't. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a reason they are coming to discuss, right?
Yeah, but we can't blame Manmohan Singh alone. It's
No,
like
no, it's okay. The
demand
idea is
government.
not blaming. The idea is, just to demonstrate that how they need to be dealt with. These are not,
Got it.
the reasonable people. They don't even take care of their own people. Leave apart caring about the neighbors and their interest or reasonability. The current foreign minister, the current prime minister knows how exactly to deal with them. And that is why they have put them in a position that they come on to all the meetings called for. Their foreign minister comes to India and he is not given the due importance. Can you imagine, supposedly the world's second largest power finance minister comes to the country
Yeah.
and he is not even allowed a press conference?
But I heard that Wang Zi he came to invite the prime minister for BRICS. So do you think that he won't be attending the conference?
No, he would definitely be attending the conference. BRICS is not the sole ownership of China, right?
But it's apparent that Russia and China it controls the entire BRICS, and both the countries are more or less like partners.
Yeah.
And we are having this border disputes, and nearly
Yeah.
20 of our soldiers
So,
lost their
Dasji,
lives. Then why are we
what
giving
happens is a lot of times we underestimate the Russian also. If you think that Russia is just gonna bow down and subjugate to the Chinese hegemony, right? Russia is also partners with China till the time Russia interests are not compromised. If China wants to be the global superpower, it has also to compete with Russia, isn't it? Do you think
Uh,
Putin will just give away the global, throne, hand it over to Xi Jinping?
but since US sanctions are crushing Russia, I also heard this. So before the invasion of Ukraine, Putin had a discussion with Xi Jinping, and he told that since Winter Olympics is nearing, he wanted Putin to postpone the war. It seems so. These are the unofficial informations that are coming out.
So
So which means that
that's
the
one
good
point,
friend is.
Dasi, which is one point that currently India is not opposing Russia on its war, right? China is supporting Russia on its war. That's one dynamics, right? We also we were the country which supported or put forward the motion of acceptance of China into World Trade Organization. Are you aware of that fact?
Yeah, even we gave a NATO seat to them.
Yeah,
It's a
so
big deal.
so that was a stupidity, but WTO was proposed by
And
India. The
security
Chinese
council
entry
also.
into WTO was
Yeah.
proposed by India. So there are places where interest meet, there are places where interest diverge. To
Hmm.
assume that China
Hmm.
and Russia are now, the Siamese twin and will ever remain so is a fallacy, right? I mean, Putin has seen five American US presidents come and go. Putin has seen three Chinese premiers come and go.
Yeah.
He has seen, five Indian prime ministers come and go. Is he gonna just hand over the leader of the Asia title to China? I mean, I seriously doubt that. He's not ruling Russia for the last 25 years just to hand over his title to somebody else, irrespective whether it is India or China.
But I feel that Putin is in a position that, see, if China is going to also join the bloc which isolates Russia, then the game is over for him. So I think that he don't stand a chance to,
You're not getting my point,
uh,
Dasab. Where interest
mhm.
converge, China and Russia will work together. Where interest will converge, India will work with China as well as with Russia. The point which
Hmm.
we are discussing in general is the
No,
China.
what I mean is,
Yeah,
do Putin stand a chance to put his national interest in the forefront in case of
of
China?
course,
What I mean is,
yes.
it's like,
Of course, yes. He's not
hmm,
there
hmm,
in
hmm.
that country from the last 25 years to hand it over to China.
Then if China is going to, if
Do
Xi
you
Jinping is
seriously
going to
believe
protect
that?
Putin, who will be on his side then? He will be all
Uh,
alone, right?
it's no, not really.
Hmm.
This is the mistake in geopolitics we often tend to do.
Okay.
Right? Even Pakistan can find a sponsor switching from America to China. Don't you think Russia would be able to get few more friends here and there?
Well, at this juncture, I feel no. I think
At
Russia
this, it's
would not come
you're
forward.
talking we're talking very short term,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
right? But
Maybe for next 3 years. Yeah.
yeah, maybe very short term, right? But then again, Putin is not a guy who's just going to hand over the reins of leadership of Asia to Xi Jinping just like that. He has not wasted 25 years in Russian
Hmm.
politics to do hand over the reins to China, right? He has built up Russia from where it was to where
Correct.
it is
Correct.
today. So, okay, so over to Samji. Sorry, we went on a one-on-one discussion away from the topic. Samji,
Yeah.
any
Okay.
pointers
Thank you.
on
Thank you.
China?
Yeah, thank you, Andolan, for doing this room. Yeah, I will just say one point about the border dispute. A border dispute with China cannot be solved. It has to be reverted back to what it was before, 1960s, right? Earlier, before 60s, we didn't have a border with China. We had a border with Tibet. So my solution to resolving the border dispute is to take it back to pre-60s. Then we will have a neighbor as a Tibet, not as China. We should work towards freeing Tibet. An independent Tibet is good for India and good for the world. That will automatically solve our border dispute as well. That's the way I look at it. Coming back to the topic of the room, should we emulate China's growth model? No, we should not. Basically, what happens is, look at China, what you look at is a filtered information. It's if you leave out a few shiny cities in China, the rest of the China is still a third world country. Uh, they hide it. They can hide it because one, they control the information which flows out. They have a firewall. All these apps are not available in China. Clubhouse is not available in China. Twitter is not available in China. So everything is firewalled. Not only that, they have a physical firewall within China as well. If any villager wants to live in a city or a town, same thing. If anyone from the town, a small town, want to go and live in a city, he has to take permit. It's like visa system. So that's why you will see less poverty in big cities, because CCP controls who can live there. Do we want that kind of system anywhere else in the world? No, it cannot be implemented in a free society.
Just
Apart from
Sam
that,
bhai, just one small, point. At least what I expect, from people who are not the eldest sibling across the globe, to not to support China, the policy, because had they been in China, they would have never existed.
yeah, Andolan, yeah, it applies to me. Yeah, I wouldn't have existed if India had formulated Chinese policy. Yeah, thanks for reminding me that. And not only that, they come up with a lot of stupid policies. You spoke about destruction of sparrows by Mao Zedong and how it led to the massive starvation. Right now, they're continuing a stupid policy of zero COVID containment. They have locked down cities after cities. They have shut down apartments. Even they're welding the apartment doors shut so that people cannot go outside. People are jumping out of buildings to their death because of starvation. The apartment is shut. They don't have anything to eat for weeks and months. They're just committing suicide. So this is a kind of model which China follows, and China is not a normal country. I don't know how many of you know. CCP runs China. Chinese army pledges allegiance to CCP, not to the China as a country. I have nothing against ordinary Chinese people. They are themselves victims. China was a great civilization. It has a lot of civilizational ties with India. I hope one day we can restore those civilizational ties, but not until CCP is there. It's not possible. So this culture, a civilization, was destroyed by CCP in what they called as a great leap forward. I would say it's a great leap backwards, or a great plunge into abyss. So that's what CCP has done to China. If you want to look at real China, I would say we should go to Taiwan. Taiwan is the real China, right? It has free speech. It is prosperous. They still retain their culture. So I would say if you want to emulate China, more power to you. I would even say we should recognize Taiwan as the real China and increase our trade relationship with Taiwan. And a lot of Taiwanese companies have invested in China. So maybe we should encourage them to come to India. A lot of companies are already coming to India. We should do it more and more. Maybe, I don't know, we should officially recognize Taiwan. We did a stupid thing, agreeing to one China policy, while China does not agree to one India policy. It builds infrastructure in disputed territory, POJK. It arms Pakistan. It does all these things. So earlier we used to negotiate with them without any reciprocity. Our foreign policy was, just be nice to somebody else, they will also be nice to you in return. That hasn't worked out with China. We have been very nice to China even after the war, but they haven't reciprocated. So I would say just recognize Taiwan as a country, increase trade relationship. If at all you want to emulate China, just emulate Taiwan. Build infrastructure. Open up your markets where it suits you. Go for free trade agreements with Western countries. because our economies are complementary. Western countries have a need for a cheap manufacturing base. They have a lot of countries with original IP. India can be home for their manufacturing. Also, India can cooperate and collaborate with this intellectual property related research and all those things. Because China, nobody wants to go to China with a high intellectual property where it is in danger of being stolen. That's the Chinese official policy: steal everything. So, given that scenario, there is a zero incentive for innovation in China. All their experts at is stealing others' innovations. Given this scenario, I think India is at a very sweet spot. We have a very strong protection for intellectual property rights, and world needs such a place for both research and development. Also for manufacturing, we should concentrate on high-end manufacturing, and we should also concentrating on high-end knowledge development. So that's basically what we should emulate. I'll take a pause now, and I'll come back to it later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Andolan,
Yeah, Ayushi, go ahead.
just a small point that which I would like to add, because while there was this bilateral talk between you and Das, you brought this very interesting point that somehow or the other there is this wrong assumption that whatever Moscow does, it would somehow or the other have this tiltation towards the Beijing. And you are very spot on into this, because you need to understand that people have taken Russia and China relationship very seriously. But the fact is, these two countries are absolutely very different in terms of geopolitics, in terms of the geoeconomics as well. And I believe why the world is seeing that these two countries are so very much in close proximity is because there is this common enemy between them, that is United States of America. But though there is this common enemy between them, there is United States of America, but even Moscow knows this very clearly, that the so-called their regional ambition that they had, or the so-called national ambition that they had, and the so-called international ambition that they have, it cannot be achieved when they would side with Beijing, first of all. And I'm not saying this with just one tone, or rather, I have some practical examples for that as well. When you will look into the site of Central Asia, a Central Asia site which is considered to be the backyard of the Russian, and thus the land which was segregated into the year of 1991, you see that how Russia is quite a bit hesitant to accept the Beijing entrance into this. So that speaks volume to the fact that though the circumstances have developed in such a way that these two countries have kind of come together in order to counter one enemy, that is the West, but that doesn't mean that they are on a very close proximity, because there are certain differences, and that differences stand in terms of ambition. So yeah, that I would like to say, Andalanji.
For backing my point. But it's a fact also. I mean, when we look at the leadership of Putin, right, and try to put yourself or anybody with a reasonable and logical mind, when he tries to put itself in the shoes of Putin, right, working from the last 20 years plus unabatedly for a cause called Russia. I think somewhere in back of his mind, the thought is not just Russia, but probably the glory of USSR. It's quite evident with what he's working for. And if somebody believes in even rarest of chances, he's gonna just, his put up and, give all his efforts of 20, 25 years and hand it over the reins of Asian leadership, of global leadership to China, I sincerely doubt that will ever happen. But let's go to new speakers. Robin G is here, WT is here. Robin, over to you.
हेलो सर, मैं देखिए हिंदी में बोलूंगा। हेलो, चलेगा ना?
हाँ, it's okay. You can.
हेलो।
हाँ, जो भी आप comfortable है.
हाँ, मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, मैंने जो थोड़ा बहुत जाना चाइना के बारे में, तो मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, स्टार्ट में जैसे चाइना और रशिया चाइना और इंडिया करीब एक साथ चले थे, लेकिन उसमें क्या था कि अगर हम लोग देखें पर कैपिटा इनकम चाइना वालों की इंडिया से कम थी। लेकिन ऐसा देखा जाए क्या हुआ कि इन लोगों ने एक कंडीशन के बाद आके जो उनकी 77 करोड़ जो जनता थी उसको इन लोगों ने उससे पार करा दिया गरीबी से। अगर इसको हम तो इस तरीके देखा जाए कि अगर वर्ल्ड जो उसमें बोला जाता है कि 125 रुपये अगर आपका एक दिन का इनकम है तो आप गरीबी रेखा से नीचे आए, तो उसको कैसे इन लोगों ने पार किया? तो अगर इस कंडीशन में हम लोग देखा जाए तो इन लोगों ने कुछ एक जनता से अपने आप के वो कुछ कड़े उससे निर्णय लिए, जिसका वो जो आप लोग जो परिणाम दिख रहे हैं तो वो उसका फल है। 1980 के आसपास में आप एक चीज़ देखिए, इन लोगों के जो चेंजेस आए 1980 के आसपास में आए हैं। अब इन लोगों ने क्या किया उसमें देखा जाए कि कैसा चेंजेस किया इन लोगों ने। जैसे अभी वहाँ पर एक बहुत बड़ा एक बांध बना है, तो उन्होंने ये नहीं देखा कि जनता को क्या फ़र्क पड़ रहा है, कैसे पड़ रहा है, कोई लेना देना नहीं, हमें बस बनाना है। कितने शहर और एरिया डूब गया, उनसे कोई लेना देना नहीं, तो वो उसमें वो किया। 2011 तक में इंडिया के 40,000 करीब जो ये होते व्यापारी होते, जहाँ उनके होटल में रुकते थे जाके, जो सामान खरीदने जाते थे, जो हम लोग देखते हैं ना मेड इन चाइना करके इंडिया में थे। आने वाले टाइम में 2013 के आसपास वो 2 लाख से ऊपर होने बैठने लगे वहाँ पर जाके, वहाँ जो सामान ला के इंडिया में बेचते हैं। तो एक कंडीशन ये भी है, वो लोग क्या उनके यहाँ एक चीज़ और भी है कि अगर आपके पास सामान बनेगा तो आपको एक चीज़ सामान बिकना है तो मतलब बेचना है, इसीलिए कोई वो कंडीशंस नहीं रखते हैं कि नहीं है तो मतलब नहीं है। अब इसके बाद एक चीज़ और अभी नहीं देखने में आ रही है कि इन लोगों ने एक उनके यहाँ जो सरकार ने एक चीज़ सिस्टम एक और नया चालू किया है, शायद आप लोगों ने सुना या नहीं हो तो मेरे को नहीं मालूम है, कि अब वो जो करोड़पति जो इनके यहाँ है, जो काफ़ी कुछ 20% के आसपास के ऊपर चल रहे हैं, इनसे ये लोग बोल रहे हैं अब आप अपने पास जो आपका एक्स्ट्रा धन है वो आप लोग वापस करो। वो पैसे को फिर ये लोग उसमें लगाना चाह रहे हैं। दूसरी तरफ एक चीज़ एक और काम ये लोग कर रहे हैं कि जो पैसा आएगा उससे वो इनके एक बात है, फिर जो इनकी जो गरीबी रेखा जो चल रही है, अब इनकी वो स्थिति चल रही है कि हम लोग गरीबी से करके सेकंड उसमें लेयर में आए, सेकंड के अंदर फर्स्ट नहीं आए, मतलब हम लोग पूरा अमीर वाली कंडीशन में आए। तो दूसरा एक तो वो चल रहा है, तो वो पैसा उन लोग आजकल देख रहे हो ना, जैक मा वगैरह का नाम गायब हो गया, सब इसी कारण है। तो एक तरफ और ये लोग क्या कर रहे हैं कि जैसे किसी एरिया में होता है, किसी को बसाना होता है, तो ये लोग क्या करते हैं कि पहले अपने इंडिया में क्या होता है, अगर हम लोग कहीं पे कहीं शहर आता है, पहले हम लोग वहाँ पर लोग आते हैं, अपना मकान बनाते हैं, ये बनाते हैं, वहाँ बनाते हैं, पैसा डालते हैं, हम लोग को देते हैं लोग कि हम अपना बना रहे हैं। लेकिन यहाँ पर उन लोगों का क्या रहता है कि वो लोग क्या करते हैं कि हम वो बना रहे हैं, यहाँ पर आप लोग के लिए एक कारखाना लगा रहे हैं, लेकिन साथ साथ में आपको हम एक वो एरिया भी दे रहे हैं जहाँ पर आप लोग के पास बिल्डिंग रहेगा, जहाँ पर आप लोग आके रहो, अपने तरीके से रहो, लेकिन आप लोग का मकान नहीं बनाना। इसके बाद क्या होता है कि वो जो होता है अपने आप से, जब वो ज़्यादा लोग रहेंगे तो वहाँ पर जो छोटे छोटे से होते हैं उद्योग धंधे अपने आप खड़े हो जाते हैं, तो वो चीज़ पे ये लोग ज़्यादा ध्यान देते हैं। इससे फर्क क्या पड़ता है कि पैसा ये लोग अपना लगाते हैं, ये जनता अपना पैसा लेके, अपना जनता का पैसा लगा के, और उस चीज़ को फिर से इनकम को डबल करते हैं, जिसका कि आज के टाइम में वर्ल्ड बैंक भी इनके ऊपर वो कर रहा है कि हाँ आप लोग काफ़ी अच्छा कर रहे हैं, काफ़ी अच्छा कर रहे हैं देखा जाए तो। ये जो मैंने पढ़ने में इतना मेरे को मालूम है। आंदोलन सर, थैंक यू सर।
Thank you. Valid point makes, and that is why there are a lot of ghost cities in China as well. But let us go to WT and then I. WT, over to you. Your views on
Okay, thank you, thank you. I couldn't understand anything Robin said because I can only understand English. Yeah, I've been hearing this room for about 20 minutes now, and there's a few points I would like to address. So there's a few speaker portrayed that CCP seems to be really a evil government, an evil party. I would like to add something. If you ask the Chinese people, especially like 35 years ago, in 1989, what the government did to the Chinese people, it was an evil thing. Yeah, I totally agree. And we hate that behavior. But if you look at what the Chinese government has done in the last 25 years, most of the Chinese approve this performance of this government, and also as well as the party. So Chinese, the Communist Party is not a regular party. It's actually the national elite group. So it is, if you think it is like a political party in India or in United States, you probably don't understand how the Chinese bureaucrat is running. So the Chinese bureaucrat has been run like in a similar manner for 2,000 years. So people take the context, and the good high score young people are going to be get into the government, and they are going to compete each other to get advanced position. So they move up from city to province, from province to national, from the national level into the top like 25, 30 people. And then between that 30 people compete the politician compete to be the number one. That's where Xi Jinping comes from. He is not like coming from nowhere. He went through years of competition to move that way. So that bureaucrat system has run in Chinese culture for years. So similar thing, the Chinese Communist Party has 80 million members, 80 million member party. That's like bigger than the population of a medium-sized country. Any European country is smaller than the Chinese Communist Party. Just like that. So it's not like a regular political party. It is an execution governing organization. So that's one thing. Another thing is this country, during the last 25 years, we have been seeing this country have a long-term goal. So, and once they set up a goal, they lay down a plan, and they have 3 years, 6 years, 9 years, 10 years. They have a solid plan to move forward. Do we have it in United States? Do you have it in India? I don't know. You can answer me. But I know Chinese government, they have it, and they are going to achieve it. Like 10 years ago, they are going to eliminate the poverty population.
I'm sorry, what did you say you have that we don't have?
Chinese government have long-term planning to resolve the social problem, like poverty.
Okay, so by long
Like,
term, what is? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to understand.
That's okay. Let him complete.
In 2010, they set up 10-year planning to remove all the poverty population. They want bring everybody into a modern living standard. Like every single village need to have electricity, running water, running toilet. Every city, every village, not city, every village, and they need to be connected with road, pave the road. And 10 years later, in 2020, they have it complete. It is done. It is in Clubhouse. I met many people from the poverty region, which they used to be like have no running water, no connected paved road. Now they talk here in Clubhouse. They all have that in their neighborhood. So which is a big achievement, and the United Nations acknowledges that. So now, if you look at my photo, they set up a planning. The national average income, they set a goal in 2035 to be $25,000 US. That's doubled in the next 13 years. So this is according to the recent national, there is a national event. There is a speaker. I just take a snapshot from his screen. So they set this goal. Currently, they are at like around 12,000 annual income, but in 13 years, their goal is 25,000. In another almost 30 years, by 2050, the goal for the Chinese average income is $50,000 US per person. So they set this kind of goal. So they have long-term planning. So do we have that in United States? Do you have it in India? Please answer me.
Yes. So WT, couple of points that I would like to make. It is why wait for 10 years to achieve $50,000 per annum income, right? If China or CCP chooses to eliminate 3/4 of its population, you can have it tomorrow, isn't it? So, the reason I'm making this harshest statement is, I am a second kid of my family, and it is only possible because I'm not in China. Had my parents been in China, I would have never existed. So, what fun $10,000 or $12,000 would have been made for me? I do not understand that. So you understand the gravity of the situation, WT. If I had been in China, or rather, I would have never had been in China. If my parents had been in China, I would have never existed. 400 million kids have not seen the face of this earth. Do you think a per capita income of $8,000 or $10,000 or $12,000 is any relevance to them? And this is precisely where the problem starts from. It doesn't end here. You want to say that Chinese people are very happy with CCP. How would we come to know that? Is there any means to know that? The answer to that is no. The only provinces which China claims under one China policy, which has information going out of it, is Hong Kong and Taiwan. And the kind of feedback that we receive from these two provinces, which is Hong Kong and Taiwan, clearly states that majority of the people in these two provinces does not want to go inside China. Now, if I take that as a sample and apply it on the entire Chinese population, my model will suggest that at least 70 to 80% of the Chinese population would be dissatisfied with their government like the way they are in Hong Kong and Taiwan, because that's the only data that we get. The rest, every data in mainland China is not available, simply not available. So you're getting my point. One is this, I would have never existed in China. So God forbid that India emulates anything like that in China. Otherwise, the policy was introduced nearly at the same time of my birth, right?
Absolutely.
So if my parents were in China, they would have had to abort me.
I'm not sure I understand 100% what you are saying, but it seems that you doubt about the numbers coming out from the mainland China, but you trust
There are
only the numbers
there
from Hong Kong.
so how do you know, WT, that majority of Chinese people are happy with the Chinese government? How do you test that?
How do we test it?
WT,
Yes.
So
And
like
just one more small statement to make. The current ruling party of India has 180 million members. That was just FYI. Go on. How do you test that the people of China love their government?
okay, if they are elite member to India, then that's a plus, that's an asset. So you should use that power to carry on to unify the opinion and move forward to the same direction.
No, we
So
don't unify opinions. We don't force opinions. That is
that's the
the
problem. If you
a
are
strong
all
point.
belong to the same
That's not a
party,
problem. That's a solution. WTI just told you. Had I been in China, I would have never existed. So God forbid that anybody like me has to be, aborted in China, right? Because I'm the second kid. I would have never existed in China.
yeah, I'll just give you another angle, okay? In the 90s, I came to United States. And when I came to United States, I helped many Chinese delegations coming out from China for here to do all kind of study. So some short term, some long term, including Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping came to United States for 3 months to stay in a farm in Iowa State, and he lived there like study how the agriculture product was developed. So he bring back the people to his own county. He was a province leader, but he bring back that delegation there. So back then, 30 years ago, many Chinese people, they used the government money to come to United States, and they turned to run away, to not go back to China, to stay in the United States. This happened thousands cases. But right now, if you look at the last 10 years, there are today there are 300,000 Chinese students taking classes in United States, but 75% of these students are going back to China. But in 20
which
years ago,
which is true,
20
which
years
is true.
ago,
WT, just a
20
small
years
point
ago,
over here. WT,
90% of these students are going to stay in United
yes,
States.
yes.
This is one point.
So
Okay,
just a
second
small
point.
counter, just a small
Second,
counter to this
second
particular
point.
point. WT, just a small point. You know, so when these students go to China, do they take along with them the entire families also, or are there families in China which the CCP can manipulate to get them back? Just a small
And
question.
Andolanji, everybody do not get the visa for they come
Yeah,
up as a
they,
student.
yes,
Not
it's a
everyone can
scrutiny.
stay
Yeah,
there. Even yes,
yes.
everyone. And secondly, WT is telling us what he knows, and he's telling the truth. But that is not all the truth, because their media is very much controlled, so they know what they are told. So that's what he's telling us.
I am aware, Miniji, about 2 years back, one lady defected to US. Her family was put to so much torture in China
Yes.
Okay,
that she was lit.
my
Yes, yeah.
last point back to you. So if you think China is running the same system like Taiwan, do you think United States going to be afraid of China?
No, but
Right now, I think
people are only. Why
China
does
top
anybody needs to be
is the
afraid of
top
any country?
enemy. China is the top enemy to compete with United States. That's a common knowledge.
No,
Is
but
it correct?
that's not the
If
common
it is,
knowledge anymore.
if
WT. So just a small interjection again, because this is also a erroneous point. Because
Taiwan's
that was
citizens
true. Just a small
can
point.
make
WT.
China.
WT. Here counter opinions also. The status of number two, which was with China till about 1.5 years back, has shifted. Now, if you go and poll America, the enemy number two for America is not China but Russia. China is nowhere in the top two list of enemies of. I don't know why you are wanting to inflate position of China as the second best competitor to US.
Yeah,
It is
Andolanji,
actually Russia. Yeah.
One
Andolanji,
more thing I want
let
to
me,
say, WT, when one child policy, I have seen the videos when there was a fight, a conflict, you can say, on China-India borders. So your soldiers being sent to the border, they were young guys, like 18, 20 years old and all that, and they were literally crying. They were crying, and that video got leaked and we saw it. Our soldiers never cry when they are coming to the borders, but they were, the reason for crying was because they are one child family, and they know if they die, their families are finished. That's it. So that's another thing. China is a very cruel to the people.
yes, ma'am. So let me just go down history and show WT the biggest. And this is after this I will come to my own points. But let's go down history and see the biggest enemies of US. The first biggest enemy of US was UK. Where is UK now? The second biggest enemy of UK when they started their Western expansion, their Manifest Destiny, right? We all know about Manifest Destiny. The biggest enemy was Mexico / Spain. Where is Spain now? Where is Mexico now? Then enter the era of world wars, right? Germany was the biggest enemy. Japan was the biggest enemy. Where is Germany now? Where is the German Empire now? Where is the Japanese Empire now? Right? Let's go down in further in history. Cuba, Russia. These are the biggest enemies of US. Where are they now? They don't. Nobody gives a shit about them. Now you think, now WT, you think that just because quote unquote your own quote that China is the biggest enemy of US, so therefore China is a superpower? No, boss. In the highway of time, you may well just be swept aside as long as you think that being an enemy matters. You will just be another Cuba. You will just be another Japan. You will just be another, page in history. Don't think that military power means anything in the long pages of time, right?
Hey, I'm American. I know what you are saying, but I want to face the reality. What I'm saying is not what I thought, what Chinese government thought. It's what our U.S. government speaking.
Sure.
So
I mean, see,
China
so
have
China will be a footnote in history,
compete. Can
and
you let me?
we'll come back to
I'll
the
let
history of
you
China,
finish.
right?
I'll let you finish.
No. So I was not asking you for a
I'll keep
response.
quiet.
One mic at a time. I let him complete his
But
point.
Andolanji, I was speaking.
Okay,
He
so you
interjected.
complete your point. Then W.
Right. So I have been waiting for a while. So I've written down 4 points. Okay. I'll just read out those points. Okay. Number 1, if any Chinese thinks that the current state of China, they have eliminated poverty, and kudos to that. Great. We want as few poor people in the world. We want everyone, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Great. But if any Chinese thinks that this is because of Chinese policies or this Chinese far thinking, whatever he was saying, whatever terminology he used, no. Until Kissinger and Nixon, China was dirt poor. China had greatest extreme poverty in the world, worse than India. Okay. Kissinger, and this is testifiable from written records, that Kissinger, he was a racist. He was a racist bigot who favored Chinese race over Indian race. He thought Indians were lazy, weak, incapable, and he thought Chinese were industrious and they were like good slaves. Quote, I'm not saying exactly slaves, but basically that Chinese followed instructions. They followed authoritarianism, as of course Mao had demonstrated. So therefore, Kissinger actually told American companies to outsource their petty manufacturing to China, and Nixon reinforced this. After Nixon, all the subsequent presidents, Bush, Clinton, Obama, everyone reinforced this. So China did not get all these great manufacturing contracts because China had any value. It was because the racist Americans thought that Chinese could be good slaves, right? So that's my first point. Don't think that China is responsible for their growth. Racist Americans are responsible for their growth. Number 2. Now that we know that Americans loved authoritarianism loving Chinese people, also understand that this is inorganic. India's growth is completely organic. Where did our IT industry start? Bangalore. Why from Bangalore? Just because there were a lot of technophiles there. There were a lot of technophiles. They were like HAL, DRDO centered in, and there were a lot of engineering colleges. So a lot of youth got very enthusiastic. India's technological growth in IT, growth in services, ITES has been completely organic. No country favored us. There was no American policy favoring us. There was no European or UK policy favoring us. We grew on our own willpower. And we will continue to grow on our own willpower. And that is the difference. कि जब आपके सर से माई बाप का हाथ हट जाएगा, तब आपकी क्या औकात है? Right?
English I.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so when certain powers that be stop favoring you, then what will be your status? So Kissinger favored you, Trump was against you. Whatever second Trump, third Trump comes, and then the whole powers that be stop favoring you,
And
start favoring.
even Angela Merkel is not there anymore.
Exactly, and many people will change. The whole global world order, the new world order, is not a static world order. It's a dynamic world order. It will keep changing, and that's why Modi ji, he keeps talking about new world order. He understands the new world order. He has acknowledged it in his speech. He understands it, and he knows that it will keep moving, right? So again, I will just restate my second point. It is the post-March. Sir,
just one small, just one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Mini ji, I have to leave for some place. Can you please, जब तक मेरे ख्याल से almost खत्म हो गया.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So if you want, if everybody is spoken, then can I end this after that?
After, let I
Yes,
finish and then.
everybody. Yes, everybody have their say.
Yep.
And anybody else want to come up? Please say it. And I'm here. No problem.
Yeah. I'll continue. So again, my second point was that a forced march cannot compete against organic growth. India is organic growth. China is a forced march. My third point is related to forced march itself. The forced march of China has human costs. Tens of millions of people have died due to Mao, due to the authoritarian regime, due to the vague ideas they were chasing. The 4PES campaign, for example. Right? So you have had to, whatever you've gained, meaning the recent years with elimination of poverty, you lost in the previous years through the, something that is equatable to genocide. How many people died in, how many Jews died in Holocaust? 6 million. How many Chinese died in the 4PES campaign? More than 10 million. 10 million is the least. So Chinese authoritarianism killed more people than the Holocaust itself. Do Indians want that cost? No. Boss, no, we don't want to pay that cost. We'll do it our way, we'll do it naturally, and we'll do it well. And we'll do it in an organic way. My last point, Chinese communism. So anybody who says communism is something new to China, or China is getting better because of this new idea of communism or authoritarianism, they don't understand the history of China. The oldest China is also civilizational, is also civilization state. The oldest philosophy of China is Fajian, legalism. The current, or rather the starting from Mao, Chinese communism has never been the international communism of Marx. Never. Chinese communism has always been legalism, which is their 3,000-year-old authoritarian fascist ideology. And that is what it is now.
Let him respond. I think he has a lot to lot many questions before.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
we started.
I was just taking points.
Yeah,
while he
you
was
can
speaking.
come after that. Yeah.
Sure.
So WT,
Okay.
you can go ahead, please.
Yeah, I only want if we can bring home anything from this discussion, I would like to not to insult other people's knowledge about history or whatever. So I personally I like to talk only fact. So I bring up fact and what I get from the fact. So that's my discussions method or that's my way to discuss with other people in Clubhouse. So what you know about China, I don't know. Maybe you read different kind of history book. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, if China has run similar system like Taiwan 100 years ago, it was a chaos. So before the communists push out Kuomintang to the island, so he has went through multi-party system for a while, but they end up with a civil war. And how do they come up from the civil war?
WT, I'm sorry, your voice is breaking. There is a static
okay,
in your voice.
because I'm driving right now. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I see.
So
No problem. Go ahead, please.
I will come back in 5 minutes. Okay.
Go ahead. Actually, no problem. Okay. So I know, WT, we do respect your views, and we don't say that you are lying. But, being outsider, not being Chinese, we know that your media is very much controlled, and no one, even within the country, knows the real facts. So when it comes to China, where there is only one party ruling, no one to oppose, media is under their control. So media says whatever the party want them to say, and you get that information from there. So we are not saying you are lying. We definitely think you are giving us what you know, and you are a proud Chinese, and we respect that. But it is different that we may not agree with you.
No.
Ma'am,
I have been living in the United States for 29 years. So I follow the speaker from our national stage. So like John Mearsheimer, Steve Cohen, all these speakers, I'm very, very familiar. I follow what's their idea, and I think they are telling the truth. How United States becomes so successful as today's hegemon is driven by the capital. It's driven by the money, and the same money made another hegemon, regional hegemon in East Asia. It is the Wall Street. It is the same thing. So they take advantage of the Chinese low labor costs and bring Chinese country from a 90% agriculture country become today's the number one industrialized country. So it is all driven by the capital. Not the Chinese government want to do it. It's the Wall Street want to do it. They are just taking advantage of this Chinese social environment and the cheap labor.
So WT, you're saying that Wall Street has more power in China than Chinese government?
Let me just finish. So today's China, they are developing a lot of technology. They are developing all sector of the industrial section, including the semiconductor. But that was not successful because of multiple reasons. But other than that, China has been in the top three area in most of the high-tech area, including the space. So has India succeeded in the last 30 years? Anything on the space? You can compare to China. So if your system is really a high-efficient system, and a few days ago you guys have a room saying you want to dominate Asia, and I ask similar questions. You cannot even finish a highway of 500 kilometers like a high-speed railway. Meanwhile, how many miles Chinese has done? Let's only talk about the facts. If they can.
I don't get why you're being combative with India. I mean, do you want us to get combative with China?
Okay. So
see, why don't you compare your high speed, your 2008? See, why don't you compare your high speed network?
I let him finish, and after that you're going to talk.
Okay, so
you're definitely going to counter him. Yeah.
No, because he's rambling. I mean, I had exactly 4 points to make, but he doesn't seem to have an end.
Let him finish.
You want me to
end? Can I come in?
Yes, you will become to be after I comes. Let WT finish, and then I will come, and then you be.
Okay. So do I have 2 minutes? Can I speak for just 2 minutes without interrupting?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, 2008, United States have this high-speed railway project from Los Angeles to San Francisco. After 15 years, how much they have done? California State didn't even finish from Fresno to Bakersfield. It is still under construction.
That's a bad comparison. US and USSR don't need high.
I honestly let him finish, and he's going to wrap up in 2 minutes. He said it. So please give him the chance. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. China is a country. They have planning. They are going to do what they say. So that's why I put the number on my photo here. So I'm saying in 2035, Chinese national average income is going to be 25,000 US dollar. They say it today, and I have a high percentage trust they are going to achieve that. Certainly, you can say, "Oh, that's not true number," blah blah blah. But Wall Street and the West media is not dumb. They are going to measure with all kind of reference numbers. How much energy you consume, how much electricity you consume, how much product you really do, and how much international trade you accomplish. So United States is now afraid of China getting close in economy wise and military influence wise. So why?
Okay.
They are afraid of China. Why? Are they afraid of?
Okay.
Are we afraid of India? Are we
Wrap up.
afraid of Taiwan? No.
Can you wrap up quickly now, please?
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you, WT. Okay, are they afraid of India or okay, America is afraid of China? Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Miniji, and I am sorry I interrupted
No
so
problem.
much. I wish I had not interrupted, but just that, it was being kind of long-winded. Okay. So I'll just say this. So first of all, this idea that US needs to develop more high-speed rail, no, that just simply does not apply. It's simply not needed. Uh, USSR, USA, Canada, these are extremely large geographies. They don't need such, in fact, airplanes are better for them economically per, cost per mile basis. So our friend here simply does not understand uh, the need for this. And in fact, even in China, if you look at the actual Chinese revenue from their quote unquote high speed rails, it's pretty bad. You know, for some place like Japan, which has like अब जैसे consider Mumbai, right? Mumbai or any these densely packed cities, they need, which have a lot of suburbs, which have a lot of places where people need to come up and get off. They need a metro. But if you make a metro in a very sparsely populated city, it will be uneconomical. It will be useless. People would rather use cabs. Similarly, in places like US and USSR, people would rather use airplanes than high-speed rails, right? So this idea of China having more high-speed rails is simply ridiculous because even China is not able to capitalize its high-speed rails. Right now, they're sitting idle. Right now, they're incurring losses on their own debt, and that's what those sources of debt are one of the main reasons why CPEC or the BRI, Border Roads Initiative, is facing a major challenge. Why they're having to squeeze their states like Pakistan and Sri Lanka dry, right? Coming to Hong Kong, this guy he mentioned Hong Kong being a stupid, chaotic state. He called it chaotic. Hong Kong versus Shanghai. Shanghai is the biggest Chinese city, right? Hong Kong under capitalism became, I think twice the size of China at one point. Entire Chinese economy was half the size of the Hong Kong economy. It was only after you exerted your authoritarianism over Hong Kong that Hong Kong economy actually started shrinking. And now, if you look at Hong Kong today, it's actually a far worse place than it used to be in 1997, when Hong Kong's growth rates, GDP growth rates, were one of the biggest in the world. Hong Kong used to be a global, economic finance center. What is Hong Kong now? Nobody wants to open a business in Hong Kong. In fact, Hong Kong's loss because of Chinese occupation in 1997 is Singapore's gain. Singapore is fast becoming the financial center of Asia, right? And lastly, Lastly, let's also observe this guy who calls himself American. He says, I am an American. I am an American. But let's see where we all see where his allegiance lies. His motherland. His motherland is China. And let's understand the model behind it, right? So what happens to Chinese people? What happens to Chinese immigrants, whether in Australia, America, New Zealand, US, UK, wherever they go? They are trailed, they are followed by their intelligence services. If they say anything against China, then their friends and family back home face repercussions. They're blackmailed. They are blackmailed and forced to say things pro China. We recently had something in Australia, right? This is my last point, ma'am. Just give me one moment. I believe this room is winding down anyway. In Australia, an Australian used a placard. He said, something bad about Xi Jinping. And he was physically attacked in Australia by Chinese Australians. I have never seen any Indian do that. I have never even seen any Pakistani do that, for that matter. So Chinese citizens are some of the most brainwashed or most remote controlled in the world, and which is what I believe the case for with this WTG here. Thank you. I'm done. I'm sorry if I went on too
No,
long.
no, no. You were spot on.
Yeah.
So I speak 2
Yeah.
minutes, and you use 6 minutes to reply.
WT, can I make
But
two quick points before you go?
and
Maybe.
you want to interrupt me. So I talk about how the
This room
government
is not about WT, so
execution.
Sanji, I would prefer if you speak. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll just make a couple of quick points. I just listened to last portion of what WT said. One about high-speed railways and why the US doesn't make high-speed railways. US doesn't make high-speed railways because US doesn't need it. Here, it is all economical. If it's economically viable, US, construct those things. China's high-speed railways is under loss. They're making a loss of 44 million per day. So no U.S. company would take that kind of loss. The airports and airplanes are pretty efficient. They're cheap tickets if you want to go travel within the country. That's why we don't need high-speed railways in U.S. That's why we don't have it. Other thing you were saying, China is the biggest competitor to U.S. I would say not even close. Can you guys name one innovation that came out of China in past 100 years? I can't name one. It's zero. On the other hand, if you look at any modern innovation, so I would bet 70, maybe even 80% of all those innovations came out of US, because US has a strong culture of innovation. It has a strong culture of protection for intellectual property rights. China doesn't have it. China has a culture of stealing. It encourages stealing IP rights. They can only manufacture cheap knockoffs, cheap copies. They can never come up with anything original. That's the whole point here. In terms of economy, the manufacturing economy is going away. Pretty soon, robots will take over. Most of the manufacturing will be automated and localized. So China relying heavily on manufacturing will go down in future, whereas US and other countries like India, who are giving more emphasis to knowledge economy, they will come up in the economic order. And China has also a lot of other headwinds. Andolan spoke about one China policy. Because of that, Chinese population is skewed. There are a lot more old people than working age people. Have have we progressed more into next decade? The problem will get worse and worse. There will be less working people and more retired people. And Chinese also don't have any safety nets like US has Social Security, Medicare, and all those things. China doesn't have this. So they'll go through a lot of crisis and chaos. China's prosperity drive, if you want to call that, has ended. Now you can see it go back towards where it began. There is no way of stopping it. Even if China wants, they cannot stop it. Recently, they reversed the one child policy, make it two child policies. Still, Chinese are not producing enough babies. Now they are saying that okay, produce as many babies as you want. Still not happening. So yeah, they have already done tremendous damage in last 70 years. There is no way that they can recover from this point. That's my closing comments.
How
Thank you.
can they
Yeah.
produce
So,
babies, more babies, when they, rural people go to the cities to make their livings and leave their kid behind with the grandparents, and they see the child for once in a year, on a New Year, Chinese New Year, go for a vacation. So that's the kind of, they're like um, used as a labor. The whole nation is working in the factories, producing things, but no quality life. So second children, how can they think of second child? But there were wonderful points. Yes, you wanted to say something. Go ahead, please.
yeah, I just want to add to one point that WT left. I mean, as soon as Sanji started speaking and supporting my point, one simple thing, okay, that people have to understand, and all planners, when you talk about Niti Aayog or whatever, they have to take into consideration that they have to look ahead of time, right? China didn't look ahead of time. That's why their multi-child policy came too late. Japan did exactly same policy. Japan didn't understand that they had, by their one child policy or two child policy, they had actually changed the socio-cultural fabric of their countries.
Your
Right? You have to
voice is
understand that.
breaking, Guy.
That am I audible
Yes,
now?
yes, please.
Am I
Yes,
audible
please.
now? Yeah. So what China and Japan failed to understand ahead of time is that with their one child, two child policies, they had changed the socio-cultural fabric of their countries, and to undo the damage to the socio-cultural fabric, they have to act ahead of time, right? Another example of acting ahead of time is that, well, as your population starts to, as WT was saying, right, poverty was eliminated. Yes, and that's great. But then you have to understand that your manufacturing workers, Foxconn workers who are assembling electronics, or putting together machines to export, that their wages will grow, and as wages grow, you will become uncompetitive in a larger world, in a more competitive world. And then same people who, I remember, if you guys remember 80s and 90s, all the lighters, cigarette lighters, they used to be manufactured in China, and they used to be crappy. They used to be very shitty. They used to break very easily. They improved it in 90s and thousands. They were great, made in China lighters. Now lighters are made all over the world, right? Same thing will happen with electronics. Earlier these the phones were made in China. Now they are beginning to be made in India, because simply because the supply, the factory workers are more competitively priced in India than abroad, than in China. China did not plan ahead for all that WT said about their forward-looking 10-year plans and so on. China simply couldn't understand that their people would demand greater wages and get greater wages, and therefore their companies will become uncompetitive. Even now, China is not factoring that, right? So with progress, with elimination of poverty, come other issues. India has been factoring that in, and India will continue to. That's all.
Definitely. Great points. San, you have to say anything, otherwise we will close the room.
Yeah, just one last point.
Sure.
China also has a problem of reputation, the problem of branding. You cannot name one well-known Chinese brand which has a brand equity in the Western world. Same thing cannot be said about India. A lot of Indian companies have good brand value. For example, Mahindra exports its tractors and jeeps to US. They are very well reputed. They have very good reputation of quality and all those things. Similarly, Royal Enfield is another brand which is famous in the Western world. Of course, Tatas also have a good reputation. You cannot say the same for any Chinese brand. All maybe they are well known in third world countries, some cell phones from China, but in the Western world, in the developed economies, they are nowhere to be seen. They're only known for cheap manufacturing. So that's the thing. I mean, they sustained until now because of cheap manufacturing. That's going away. The rise of China is long story that has been over now. Now it's only the decline we will see. That's my closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Thank you. I you want to say any final words? Then I close.
Yeah, actually, I joined the room to disagree with
You're
the
breaking
headline.
again.
I don't think this, uh, is it
Yes,
better now?
yes, yes.
Better now? Yeah, actually, I came into the room to disagree with the headline. I don't think this is, I think this is a temporary pause in Chinese economy. I think China will come back, but for none of the reasons that WT said.
I hope
Okay, for
not.
none of the reasons.
I don't know. I never want China be, you know, they're
No.
evil.
Wanting is different. Yeah. Wanting is different, but having a realistic outlook is different. In my realistic outlook, I think this is a temporary pause. This COVID break, the supply chain issue. I think all of these things will be sorted out. In fact, I think this will be sorted out with American help. America and Europe will help.
Again, you
Yeah.
are breaking. Yeah, I know. I hope world learn from this time how China has acted, what they are up to, what their intentions are with this COVID virus and all that. How Wuhan, factory of this COVID, they should be totally, kind of boycotted. They should not be that powerful anymore. The countries should move their businesses from there and move to the other countries. Trust a country like India more. I don't want them to starve, but they should not be, they don't deserve to be a kind of powerful country they are as of today. So that's my closing comment. I will end the room here. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you everyone in the audience. Thanks again. Vande Mataram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
This video was made possible by Creative Contents.